We've also got a tornado watch in effect until 3 p.m. for the eastern third of our area, and that's because of some feeder bands that are going to come through, and what they're going to do is they're going to spin up. Look there's a tornado warning right now for Ocala. That's why we've got the tornado watch out. So the thought is that once Idalia begins to move further towards the north, we're going to see some of these bands work through our eastern counties, and we could see some of these tornado warnings. That's going to be something that we need to stay aware of as well. So there's a lot of moving parts as Idalia starts to make its way onshore. Here's the recent forecast advisory from the National Hurricane Center. It just came out at 7 a.m. All right, this is the big news. It is no longer a Category 4 hurricane. It has been downgraded to a Category 3. That means it's starting to weaken. Good news for us. And of course, as it makes its way on land, it will continue to weaken. It will no longer be able to feed off of the warm Gulf waters. Sustained winds are now down to 125 miles per hour, which means we're not letting our guard down whatsoever, okay? The change was 5 miles per hour. We're not focused on this category number. What we're focused on is staying inside and staying safe, especially if we are in southeastern reaches of the Big Bend as Idalia starts to make its way onshore. I noticed the pressure is also starting to rise a little bit, and that is another sign that it is starting to weaken. Now, I heard we have a live shot out of Horseshoe Beach where we did see a wind gust over 80 miles per hour, so let's check that out. I don't see much visibility at all. I'm guessing that is, oh, so that's covered in water. The island is underwater from storm surge.
Where's that?
This is Horseshoe Beach.
Horseshoe Beach, it's all covered with water.
This checks out.
Yep.
Horseshoe Beach was forecasted 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. And that's what you're seeing right there on your screen. That's what happens when you have a powerful hurricane wrapping around with those winds coming out of the south and out of the west on the east side of it. The water has nowhere to go in the bay, so it piles, and it piles up onto the shore. And that is what you're seeing right there. That island is inundated. That is why evacuation orders were put in place. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be a lot more scenes like that over the next hour or so as Idalia is continuing to pour water up into the shoreline. So Horseshoe Beach is going to be right around there, and the winds are coming out of the south right now and out of the west because this thing has a counterclockwise rotation. We'll go ahead and play out the rest of this forecast track. It's going to continue to move inland. Our central South Georgia counties, we're talking about spots like Lowndes, Clinch, Eccles, Lanier. We're keeping a very close eye on you. A powerful hurricane is still going to move through. It's still forecast to be a Category 2 storm by that time with sustained winds of 100 miles per hour. That is no joke once again. We're going to have to keep a very close eye on conditions there. Lots more power outages expected. Lots of damaging wind gusts. That's going to bring down a lot of trees and leave a lot of debris down there on roadways. We do not want to be outside right now for at least the next few hours, especially if we're in the eastern third of our area right now. Well, good news is it's a fast-moving storm. It's going to continue to race off into the Carolinas, and eventually it's going to exit out into the Atlantic. By the time we get to this evening, you're going to notice much nicer conditions that will start to fall into place. So here's some of those wind speeds, all right? I noticed they're a lot higher. Now we're seeing sustained wind speeds now in the 20s, some spots in the 30s. Sustained winds in Tallahassee right now at 23 miles per hour, 35 in Perry, 23 in Cross City, 17 in Bainbridge, 16 in Thomasville. South Georgia, I'm not too concerned about you right now. Things look good there. Appalachia down to 21 miles per hour too. Definitely the main concern right now in terms of wind is going to be our southeastern Big Bend counties. I'm not getting a reading out of Live Oak right now. Hopefully we get that one back online, but we might not. Here are some of those current wind gusts. These are definitely starting to pick up. Check this out. Tallahassee, 35 miles per hour. Out goes the power. It's out at my house. I checked. It's already gone. 48 mile per hour wind gust in Perry. That's definitely starting to pick up. Now we're starting to cause some damage down there in Taylor County. I'll tell you this, those wind gusts are going to be a whole lot higher directly at the coast compared to what they're going to be even a little bit further inland. That's why we were telling people, hey, you know, if you live on the coast, just go inland, all right? If you don't want to go past Perry, that's fine. But the thing is, the winds are just so much more powerful while they're still offshore and as they slam onto the coast. That's why we're starting to see all of that storm surge as we saw there at Horseshoe Beach. I think we have a live view down in Wakulla where the winds are starting to pick up there a little bit. Let's go ahead and check that out. Yep, those trees are moving. Now's the time that we're inside. That is quite the view down there in Wakulla. Yep, it's going to be a couple more hours of that. The worst of it is pretty much about to move onshore. And as long as it's offshore, it's still got some really, really powerful winds. As soon as that core starts to move onshore, then we start to see it weaken a little bit, especially for our offshore winds. But of course, we're still going to be very concerned for this general area as it continues to move towards the northeast. But yes. Well, there you go. Now we got a wind gust of 40 miles per hour in Tallahassee. We're up to tropical storm force wind gusts there. Lots of 20 mile per hour ones, 25, 30 as you head your way into South Georgia, 31 there in Quincy, 38 down at Lafayette High. Cross City no longer reporting any wind gusts. I guarantee you they're very high there as well. So here's the futurecast in terms of what can we expect for wind gusts moving forward. Over the next hour or so, we're talking about spots like Live Oak, like down in Lafayette County, like Madison County, especially Perry, even Jefferson High. We're looking at wind gusts 60, 70, 80 miles per hour as Idalia continues to move onshore once it does that. And still, other spots to the west like Thomasville, Tallahassee, we're talking about wind gusts of 40, 50, close to 60 miles per hour. More trees down, more debris, more power outages expected over the next couple hours. And those continue to stay pretty high wind gusts around 20, 30, 40 miles per hour across most of our area. And of course, the trouble spot is going to continue to be where Idalia continues to track across. By the time we get to later on this morning, like say 10 o'clock, Valdosta, keeping a very close eye on you. Hamilton, Eccles, Clinch counties, we're talking about wind gusts once again, 70, 80 miles per hour, very damaging. Continuing to move off towards the northeast, eventually spots like Homerville, and then eventually, by the time we get past, say, 2, 3 o'clock, is when we finally start to see things start to calm down by the time we get to this evening. But it's going to be a long next few hours. It's going to feel long because it's going to be a lot of sitting and waiting and watching these damaging winds really cause some havoc outside. We've got the flood watch as well. We've got lots of concerns with heavy downpours. Here's the rainfall totals so far. Lots of spots getting 2 to 3 inches with those really heavy rain bands. Isolated spots getting over 4 inches of rain. A lot of spots west of Tallahassee and northwest of Tallahassee around ½ inch to 1 inch so far. I'll show you that futurecast one time. Once again, this has a pretty good look of things. It's going to continue to dump heavy, heavy rain, especially on the north and the west side of that center of circulation as it works its way across the state line into our south central Georgia counties, eventually starting to exit by the time we say probably 4 o'clock. Sounds like a good time, 4 or 5 o'clock. But we've still got some scattered showers and a couple thunderstorms that roll through from the backside of those feeder bands of Idalia. Once again, some of our rainfall totals, I like how this shifted. This makes a lot more sense. We're talking about, once again, 5 close to 10 inches isolated in some spots along this path, including Thomasville down through Jefferson County, a little bit into Leon and Wakulla as well. A little bit less once you make your way further north and to the west. That was a lot of information to take at once, I know. But we're sifting through everything. We're still here. We're going to continue to walk you through this thing over the next several hours.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much, Josh, for that current breakdown. And it's good to hear that with the 7 a.m. update that it's been downgraded to a Category 3 for the moment. So.
Yeah, and it's good for the nerves, I feel like, although they made it clear that it was just a small actual change just from one category to another, and the threats are still out there. So this is the most crucial time of this whole week as we've been tracking tracking Idalia. So we're keeping a close eye on that. And we're continuing to stay in touch with emergency management officials across our region. We did want to pass along a message from Suwannee County, the sheriff's office there, reminding folks that emergency services, including law enforcement, ambulances, fire trucks, they're all not able to respond until winds return to below 45 miles per hour. You just saw that map that Josh was showing of those wind speeds. They are in that danger zone for folks. So you're not going to get any help if you have an emergency, and that's across the board. But Suwannee County wanting us to mention that again, that they will reach you once it is safe.
Yeah, once it's safe for those search teams or the first responders to get out there and help. And remember to don't call 911, especially if it's not a true emergency.
Absolutely, for sure.
We can't have them going out there anyway.
Right. And again, as we are in the middle of the storm happening, it's still also a good time to go ahead and look ahead.
It is. There are some steps you can take now to prepare for the legal side of hurricane recovery. It's important to keep your important documents on hand. You know, we forget about that sometimes, but try to keep those things secure. That includes ID, birth certificates, marriage licenses, a social security card, or even your passport. Make sure to have easy access copies of your insurance policies. That stuff is important.
And proof of ownership for a home or a property, also very important, especially if you need disaster assistance. And if you still can, and at this point, I think it's safe to say you cannot, but if you have an old phone you have a phone with old photos, you can try to find some of your home and property to help prove what damage was caused by the storm.
Right. It may not be a good idea to get out there now and trying to take photos and video outside, but also some other important notes. Florida licensing on wheels, also known as FLO. The mobile units are ready to deploy to affected counties after the storm to help with replacing lost credentials.
And the Florida Department of Transportation has 700 team members staged across the state. If you were with us when we took the governor, he did go over a lot of these numbers. 64 bridge inspectors. FDOT crews are equipped with almost 250 pieces of major equipment. That includes 140 dump trucks, 59 pumps, and lots of other essential heavy equipment that can help in recovery. They also have 1,100 generators staged and ready to go.
Yeah, it's interesting to see those numbers and all the things that are available. You know, sometimes you may not realize what goes into all of this, and it's like, oh yeah, they have this, that, and the other to make sure to be able to step in when they can. Yeah,
and we've been showing a power outage graphic every now and then. I don't believe we have that, but I do have some new information coming in. Suwannee has 3,200 outages now. Wakulla almost at 9,000.
Wow.
Lafayette 1,400. Taylor County 4,200. Leon at 4,400. And Wakulla County alone now over 10,000 customers without power. So those are the kind of numbers we suspected we would see around this time of the morning.
We knew that would happen. That would be a big thing dealing with today, those power outages.
And if you do lose power, it can mean obviously losing communication. We mentioned, it seems it was a few hours ago we talked about this, but if your friends are watching from afar, your family's watching from afar, and you need to let them know that you are okay after Idalia comes through. If you lose power, you lose cell service, that can be difficult, but Xfinity does have a lot of free Wi-Fi hotspots available. You can see this map of Tallahassee and surrounding communities. That's all the hotspots there. They are free. You do not have to be an Xfinity customer to use them. And if you want to find one closest to you, you could probably pull out your phone and start seeing if there's a network there because there's so many. But you could also go to finder.wifi.xfinity.com. The website's on your screen. And again, free, and you don't have to be an Xfinity customer.
All right, so that's pretty neat that they're doing that because, again, one of those things that you may not realize, like, oh, wait a minute, what if I do lose connection? So that is available for anyone for free. So that's pretty good there. Yeah,
and of course, we've hoped you've had the First Alert weather app on your phone for not just this storm, but for all others. But also, you can sign up for emergency alerts in the county where you live. And it might be too late for this storm, but there could still be some very important messages coming your way. But for the next one, for sure, we have a list of all the different counties in our viewing area. You can click whatever link applies to you, and once you go there, it'll take you to a website where you can then sign up for some important alerts. Counties use different companies with different apps
Right.
to help keep folks in the loop, and this is one of those in Jefferson. So
Right.
really good stuff to know for the future as well as
Right.
for right now.
Very good stuff. As you can see, we had Florida and Georgia counties on there. All you have to do is go to our website, WCTV.tv, and you can find all of that information. We've been talking to everybody about the alerts and our weather app forever. So even if you still haven't uploaded that yet, do that as well. You can find that information on WCTV.tv.
Absolutely. And we have reached sunrise in our area, so the weather
let's
cameras
see.
might start to show more clearly the impacts. Let's go to St. Mark's, one of our favorite weather stim cameras to take. You see the lighthouse there
Yeah.
staying strong in the torrential rain and wind. This weather stim camera showing just that.
Right, a live view right there. And yeah, you see those trees blowing. Things are happening out there. And as you said, with the sun starting to finally come up, we can see a little better out there. And to note, but, as the governor mentioned about an hour ago, that even if it may seem calm where you are, don't go out there.
Right.
A lot of people may be interested to kind of see what's happening. Let us show you and try to stay as safe as possible.
For sure. And we haven't seen anything in our region that matches what Cedar Key looked like. If you were with us several hours ago, a pretty dramatic shot there in Cedar Key. So we haven't quite seen that yet, but it could still be on the way with that eye wall approaching the coast, and we are tracking that very closely. Rob, take it away.
Yeah, how are things right now, Rob?
Yeah, plenty to watch out there, and kind of interesting, the shift to the east made a huge difference for St. Mark's. A couple hours ago, before it was starting to swing east, it looked like St. Mark's might have been more in the crosshairs, but now it looks more like Keaton Beach is, and that shift of, 40 miles or so makes a huge difference. So the 7 o'clock information did downgrade the storm to a Category 3. It's got winds at 125 miles per hour sustained. The pressure went up to 947 millibars after being around 942, so that's a significant rise, indicating some of that weakening in that eye. Now, also, the motion is to the north-northeast at 18, so it's picking up forward speed, so it's getting closer and closer to the coast. As it gets over land, the weakening should continue, hopefully even faster than indicated here. And I think by lunchtime, we're just watching to see whatever's left. We still have the same sort of hurricane and tropical storm warnings. More of the extensions were to the north and to the east, not to the south and to the west, simply because the track of the storm is changing just a little bit. And it's getting harder and harder to see that eye. Now, like I said earlier, if this were 100 miles or so south over the waters, not getting close to land, this could have been going through one of those eye wall replacement cycles, which is sort of one at a time, and it kind of weakens a little bit just to get stronger. But that's unlikely to be able to complete itself because it's running out of time moving up towards the coast. So hopefully this weakening is what's going to continue. And it's getting harder and harder to see that distinct eye. I think if I draw it on for you, it's right there. I mean, that's real close to the coast. So we're not at landfall yet, but we're getting really, really close. It's going to be happening within the next maybe 10 or 15 minutes if it takes even that long, but certainly within the next hour. So landfall is on the way, and it's going to be south of Perry, maybe just a little bit north and west of Keaton Beach, and then it will continue to race on off in that direction. As it does, it gets over land, it should continue to weaken once it gets cut off from its fuel supply. It'd be nice to see some of this drier air wrap into it too and really start to weaken everything. Now, here's what it looks like on the radar picture, and you can certainly see that circle get more open looking, almost more like a comma now, or an upside down comma, or a frowny face, and not the distinct circle like it was. And that's because it's encountering some of that resistance. And as it's getting closer and closer to land and it gets cut off from its fuel supply, it should continue to weaken. So we've got all that things working in our favor, but that is not to discount how dangerous this still is, how strong the winds still are, and how heavy the rains still will be. And of course, with all that surge we are going to continue to deal with up and down those coasts. So we've got a couple of pretty significant bands of rain just north of Keaton Beach, just south of Perry, maybe another one between Perry and Mayo. So a couple of areas where the rains are going to be harder than some of the rains that we've already been seeing. We are still expecting those really high surge numbers, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 feet, especially for Taylor and for Dixie County. That rainfall bullseye still probably needs to move a little bit more to the east. This is a little bit of an adjustment from what we saw earlier, but I think the heaviest spots are going to be in that 5 to 10 inch range, and we'll see some areas, a lot of areas, in that maybe 2 to 4 or 3 to 6 inch range, and then it quickly drops off to the north and to the west. kind of winds are we looking at? Well, right now, not much. We've got a lot of 20 to 30 or 35 mile per hour winds. I do think we saw there, maybe by 8, 9 o'clock, we could see some 60 mile per hour winds near Keaton Beach for sure, close to that core. Remember, the strongest winds are going to be right there near that core. That core is tiny and opening up, so it may not be as strong as it would have been if it held together. And then once you get more than 20 or 25 miles away from that core, those winds drop off immensely. So totally different, maybe 30 miles away from where that core is crossing land, especially if you're west of there as opposed to east of there. Here's a look at some of those future cast winds, and by the time we get to 10:30, most of the activity is really calming down, even down towards the coast. But over near Live Oak, up towards Valdosta, that's where we still expect to find those winds maybe sustained near 50 or 60 miles per hour, and that is scary, that is dangerous, and that is treacherous. So at least through lunchtime, we're going to need to watch this move off and move away from the area. And then as we get into the afternoon, we're still going to need to proceed with caution, because there's still going to be dangerous stuff out there and dangerous after effects with all the flooding potential. And of course, it's still going to be breezy out there, and you always got to be careful if any power lines are down. You always got to treat those like they're live, so don't touch them, don't get near them. Okay, so as we get into the morning hours, these next 2 or 3 hours, we certainly want to make sure we're just staying where we are. Once we get to after lunchtime, even if it seems like it's okay, don't be venturing too far. Don't be on the roads if you don't need to be. Let the emergency crews and the first responders get to where they need to get to so they can start cleaning things up and getting things set up so we're able to start returning to more normal by tomorrow. And I do think things will be winding down later on this afternoon and this evening. So it's the next couple of hours are the biggest ones. That's the prime time. And once we get past lunchtime, things do start to wind down. Some of the wind gusts that we've been seeing, saw a couple of up over 40 in spots. Perry, maybe close to 40 at a couple of times. There was one 48 just recently at Perry. So yeah, we're going to find some of those wind gusts that could get 70 or 80 or 90 miles per hour. Those gusts, those 2-second bursts are the ones that are going to be really scary. So be careful. Flooding concerns, a huge, huge thing all across the board. I think especially from Wakulla and Leon and Thomas County east. But that flood watch still does include Decatur and Grady and Gadsden and back through Liberty County. So we still have those watches we're going to be keeping our eyes on. Here's what the radar shows, and we've got some significant rains through much of Leon County, down through Wakulla, all around Crawfordville, some pretty heavy rains. There's a lot of orange here from right around Monticello straight back down to the coast. It gets lighter as you head north, but we're still getting some decent rains from Moultrie to Thomasville. So all around Highway 319, some significant rains. Up Highway 27, all the way up to Bainbridge, we've got some significant rains here too, and then you get north of there, much weaker. And of course, the biggest rains are the ones that we expect to see moving through parts of Taylor County, and from Taylor, they'll push into Madison and up towards Brooks and Lowndes and up towards Hamilton and Eccles counties. Now we've got that extreme wind warning for coastal areas and inland areas of Taylor, of Dixie, and of Lafayette County now. We've got the tornado watch because you can get those spin-up tornadoes, and that is for Taylor, Madison, Lowndes County, and areas east, but that doesn't mean we can't get some tornadoes in other spots where some of these spiral bands continue to circulate. And I do think those spiral bands will continue to circulate, so we're going to be expecting lots of rain and the threat for some of those bigger thunderstorms, and there could be those spin-up tornadoes, so please keep checking in with us. We'll have updates. If there are any tornadoes, we'll break into whatever we're doing to let you know that they're happening. Now, as far as those rains go, you can see Highway 84 from Bainbridge through Cairo and through Thomasville and through Quitman over to Valdosta. It's pretty significant stuff. There's even more as you head a bit farther to the north up Highway 319. We've got some significant rains all the way up to Moultrie. Down Highway 19, past Monticello, down to the coast, even down towards Wassissa, we've got some solid rain coming down there too. And that's closer to where that core is. That's going to be a little further to the south and to the east into parts of Taylor County. And then there's this pretty significant stripe right here that comes through Wakulla County and will circulate around that core and wrap around to give more areas more rain. So these next couple of hours are going to be the wettest, they're going to be the windiest, and they're going to be the most wild. So we've got plenty to keep our eyes on, but I do see at least a few breaks in there, like between Steinhatchee and Horseshoe Beach. Not much rain coming down. Let's take a look. We've got the camera dialed up from near Steinhatchee, and we'll see what that looks like as the storm is making its progress. And yeah, while there's definitely some wind pushing some whitecaps on the water, it certainly doesn't look like the crazy rain's coming down there. I see one lonely truck out in that parking lot. I hate to be that truck right now, but I definitely see quite a bit of wind blowing across that water there in Steinhatchee. So that's what we see down that way, and that's in that one little slot that is not seeing as much rain right now as areas both sides, north and south or east and west of it. So, yeah, we can certainly pick out where some of those breaks in the rain are, and some of those breaks hopefully start to become more numerous as the eye of the system itself gets on land over there near Keaton Beach, and I think that's going to be happening any minute now. So I think we're going to be talking about landfall probably sometime very, very shortly. And as that happens, it continues to push off to the north and to the east, and as it continues to move out of our way, now we'll start to look for improvement this afternoon. But for these next few hours, this is when we just have to watch and wait it out, guys. We'll have more updates for you as we continue through the morning. We'll see when that landfall happens officially, but it looks like it's starting to happen now, guys.
All right, just minutes away perhaps from a historic landfall,
Wow.
unfortunately, in the Big Bend. Rob, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and take a look at the power outages. We know that there are still quite a few around our area. Tallahassee's still in that 600 range, 683. And Talquin, 13,380, and that Tri-County still in the 4,000 area. And Jacob, you have been having a breakdown of some of those.
I don't have any brand new numbers, and I'm not entirely convinced this graphic is completely up to date because these numbers look pretty similar to what we saw
last
earlier.
time. Yeah, they
There's
really
a chance there have been a few more added, so we'll double check that. But needless to say, there are thousands of people without power in our viewing area. The last update I received was, at least 10,000 in Wakulla without power, or 8,800 without power. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that as the story, which is totally according to script, right? We thought that was going to happen this morning. So if you're watching us through a live stream on our website, on your phone, we do appreciate you joining us. Of course, everyone very concerned about the next few hours.
Right, and we'll make sure to have you covered. I did get a message from someone who said it appears to be a massive outage on the map near Thomasville Road and Monroe intersection. They were asking, was it anything specific that caused it other than a hurricane? So,
yeah.
I'm not sure if there are any power lines or anything down that's causing it, but we do know there is a lot of areas seeing the power outages.
Yeah, and we do want to check in now with our, I believe, do we have the sheriff? Is that what I'm hearing? We have the sheriff on the phone? Is that accurate? All right, so we do have the Leon County Sheriff joining us, Walt McNeil, by phone. Sheriff, can you hear us?
Good morning, Sheriff.
I can. Good morning.
Yeah,
Great.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, and I know it's been a long night for your office there. First off, just how are things for all your men and women, your deputies out there?
Well, thank you. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 of our deputies on the road right now. They are hunkered down and observing what's taking place. We are anticipating winds to pick up here in the next hour or so. And all the indications are that this storm will have significant impacts. We're very concerned about the spin-offs in terms of tornadoes that may occur in our community. And obviously, as you guys were talking about earlier, the downed trees that pose a significant problem for us, and the loss of power that we see across our community. But our deputies and our law enforcement first responders are all working together and try to make sure that when we do our recovery, we can do it as quickly as possible and as safely as possible.
All right, so, we know that you guys are ready for that response and recovery. What kind of things are you guys seeing out there? Have your men and women been able to relay anything to you on that?
No, fortunately, we've seen that our citizens are, for the most part, abiding by the directions that have been given. We talked about if you're going to evacuate or leave Leon County, and do that. And those who have done that have moved on. And we've asked people to go to our shelters, and we've had something close to 400 people that have shown up at the shelters. So everything is looking good for us, quite honestly, right now. It just depends on what strength that hurricane is when it gets into the Big Bend and more closer to Leon County.
Yeah, Sheriff, I was going to ask if we had an updated number on those taking advantage of the shelter. So good to see that several hundred people are. Any other message you wanted to share with your constituents, with the folks here in Leon County? Obviously, that track to the east made it seem like we might not see as strong a wind gust, but a wind gust of even 40 miles per hour is still significant, right, Sheriff?
Absolutely, and we want to make sure that our citizens stay hunkered down until we get the all clear sign. Again, we know we have trees down.
All right, we may have lost Sheriff McNeil there, but that's the telltale sign, right? But
Lost connection.
I'm sure he's off to do important things as we near 7:30 here, or we're past 7:30 here on this Wednesday.
Right, we really do appreciate him taking time to speak with us, though.
Absolutely.
All right, well, right now we're going to go ahead and speak with Brianna Shaw, our reporter there, who is at one of the shelters in Leon County, the Lincoln High School.
Yeah, Brianna, we've checked in with you periodically throughout the morning as the sun has started to rise. We are being told we lost her shot. You know, lots of things in flux because of the current weather conditions. So we're doing our best to work around the technological boundaries. But perhaps we could take a peek at a weather camera or two, or we can continue to talk about the current situation. As all right, we're going to go back to the shelter. Is that what I'm hearing? We have we have the sheriff back on the phone?
The sheriff is back, okay.
All right, Sheriff, you hear us? All right, we lost him too. We could probably let the sheriff get back to his duties at this point. But yeah, I think it's the bottom line from everyone, from every county, is that even if it looks like the sun's coming up and there's not a lot of rain outside your window, that could change quickly, Josh. And it appears we're just minutes away from an official landfall.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jacob. We're really keeping a close eye on that right now. Here's the current radar loop. Yeah, I mean, this is a large, powerful hurricane. Look at all of the moderate to heavy showers stretching across much of the Big Bend in South Georgia right now. Lots of them still heading into Leon County. I see some in northern Madison County, exiting portions of Thomasville right now. But of course, the most dangerous and concerning section of this storm is going to be the core. Right there, now making landfall in Taylor County. It looks like right there is where we can see our center of circulation, which is pretty much in line with Keaton Beach right now. That's where we could be seeing our eye. No official landfall yet, but it does look like that's pretty much happening right now. But I'll tell you what, the winds in this section right here are very, very, very dangerous. There's actually an extreme wind warning out. We'll get to that in just a second, but I just want to let you know, if you're along this portion of Taylor County, especially near the coast, if you're in Perry, Lafayette County, now's the time where you need to act like this is an active tornado warning, where you need to head to the lowest level of your home, away from windows, and ride this thing out, because this is very dangerous. Here's that extreme wind warning right now. We've got one for coastal areas of Taylor and Dixie County. That's going to be in effect until 9:15 a.m. So we've got about a little less than 2 hours for that one. The one that's a little bit more inland, that's for portions of Perry and Mayo in Lafayette County. That's going to be for an additional hour, 10:15 a.m. That's because the core of Hurricane Idalia, the strongest winds, which still have sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. That's the last check. But remember, that's not everywhere. That's just one spot in the storm above the surface. But we're still dealing with some very, very dangerous wind gusts. So that's why we got to go ahead and stay sheltered and acting in that area like this is a tornado warning. Speaking of, we actually do have a tornado watch in effect as well. It's going to be in effect until 3 p.m. this afternoon. The reason why we have that is because some of these feeder bands that are coming up from the south, they can become tornadic. Look at this one right now near Brunswick in southeast Georgia. That's a tornado warning. These kind of interact with the land. They start to get a little spin. And then, yeah, you can see something, funnels come from the sky. And that's when you're going to start to see some of these tornado warnings pop up. That's what we're watching really closely right now, in addition, of course, to this core, which does seem to be forming a little bit better than what it was before. But yes, it's already started weakening. That's the good news. It will continue doing that once it gets on land. It's not going to be able to feed off the warm water anymore, so it doesn't have any more fuel at that time. Here's the latest forecast advisory from the National Hurricane Center. This one came out at 7 a.m. Sustained winds still at 125 miles per hour. This is still a powerful, major Category 3 hurricane, and it's moving towards the north-northeast around 18 miles per hour, so it's still moving very quickly. Where's it headed next? Well, it's headed to our inland southeastern Big Bend counties. It's going to maintain its strength as a hurricane, most likely still a Category 2 hurricane by the time it crosses that state line into our central South Georgia counties. We're talking about spots like Valdosta in Lowndes County, over into Clinch, Eccles, Lanier. We're keeping a very, very close eye on you, even over into Berean, Colquitt, down into Brooks as well. It is heading that way next, but it's going to be about another hour or two by the time it gets there. For now, the main concern is going to be spots like Taylor, Lafayette, Suwannee, Hamilton, and Madison counties as the core of Idalia begins to move on through southeastern reaches of the Big Bend. By the time we get to this evening, conditions are going to rapidly improve. That's the good piece of news that we get with a fast-moving storm like Idalia is. It's going to continue to race off towards the Carolinas. It's going to dump a lot of rain, still bring some gusty winds there before it eventually exits off into the Atlantic Ocean. Here's our current wind speeds across the area. Definitely the highest winds are going to be near spots like Perry at 39 miles per hour right now. Tallahassee sustained at 23, Moultrie at 24 there. Bainbridge, I see 16, 21 in Apalachicola. I bet you a lot higher right now in Wakulla County, where we just saw a couple of those cams there. 23 right now in Cross City. I see 16 in Valdosta. Here's some of those wind gusts. I see a very dangerous wind gust right now in Perry, 64 miles per hour. That's that core getting very, very close to Perry proper right now. 43 down there at Lafayette High, 38 in the capital city, 28 in Thomasville. There's a new one in Bainbridge, 31 miles per hour, 29 here in Valdosta, 36 in Moultrie. That's going to continue to leave debris out on the roadways. That's going to continue to add to those number of power outages as well. Let's look at one of the models just to get an idea of what kind of wind gust we're going to be dealing with throughout the next few hours, all right? First off, right now, we know the core of the storm is right here. So the most damaging wind gusts are going to be for coastal areas in southeastern reaches of the Big Bend. Over the next hour, that threat is going to move inland in our southeast Big Bend counties. Spots like Suwannee, Madison, and Hamilton. You're going to be up next for these very, very damaging wind gusts. Then after that, it'll continue to move across the state line. Spots like Valdosta, over into Clinch, Eccles, and Lanier County. A little bit further off towards the west, we're still expecting wind gusts in the range of 40 to 50 miles per hour. That's a pretty safe bet at this time, although I wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe one or two spots get to that 60 mile per hour mark. But for now, we should definitely be preparing for at least 50 mile per hour wind gusts over the next couple hours, even if that core isn't coming straight through your area. That's like spots like Tallahassee, like Thomasville, like Jefferson County, where that core, yes, it's not making its way through your county, but those tropical storm force winds extend very, very far, and at some points they can become very gusty. Remember, those hurricane force winds, they're extending about 25 miles outside of the center right now. So that's not going to cover a whole lot of ground, but where it does, it's going to be very, very impactful. By the time we get to late this afternoon, the storm is making its way out of places like Clinch County. Then by the time we get to tonight, everything starts to calm back down. Remember, we've got the flood watch. We've got lots of concerns right now with the amount of rainfall that we're seeing across the area. Here's some of our rainfall totals as of 7:41 a.m. We've got several hours left to go. I see lots of spots now starting to total up to 3 to potentially 4 inches, all the way a little bit further off towards the west. Those spots are starting to gain some more rain as well. We're talking about a lot of spots at least an inch of rain now. These totals will continue to climb. Here's one of the future casts. This is showing pretty accurately where that center of circulation is right now with the rain bands surrounding it. It's going to continue to surround that north and west side, dumping rain across the Big Bend in South Georgia before it eventually starts to lift by the time we get to early this afternoon. Then we'll get a few more of these isolated showers and storms on the backside of Idalia by the time we get to later on this evening. And yes, we've been keeping an eye on this rainfall forecast. I think they're going to be updating it right now. That's why it's empty. So there's lots of information coming in. We're going to continue tracking this. We're going to let you know if we do get an official landfall spot. Rob will be back here soon with some fresh updates.
All right, we do like fresh updates, Josh, and yeah, this is the hour, this is the time where we might see that historic landfall.
Yeah, indeed. All right, thanks, Josh. We'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Right now, as we've... All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look outside to see how things look in Steinhatchee. All right, Taylor County, we've kind of been looking at this view a few times over the morning. And so, wow, look at there.
Yeah.
Now that the sun has come up a little bit, you can kind of see the water better now.
Yeah, and this is not supposed to be an ocean view. This is supposed to be a river view, right? The marina is on the river there in Steinhatchee. So this that just shows just how that storm surge is starting to come on into the shore there. I mean, that's the dock there, which I suppose they're floating docks, right? So they would rise with the storm surge. I believe I'm correct in that. So that's why they're not.
That's why they're moving.
That's why they're still visible, I believe.
Right.
So it's a little harder.
They would be covered if they weren't floating docks.
Right,
Okay.
and this camera's mounted to the top of the marina there in Steinhatchee. So you can there's the roof there you can see. So you can see the building next door though, and that the water has definitely reached the building. So this is the storm surge threat we predicted, and it's coming to fruition for sure.
Yes, it's so glad, that the whole area has been cleared. Every time we did look out there, we didn't see anybody out there, anyone doing anything. The boats have been long gone. People making sure that they took those preparations and got things out of the way. It's very important.
We were at Keaton Beach yesterday, and we're talking to folks who were really taking this seriously. And if the landfall ends up being Keaton Beach, then of course they'll be very grateful that they did take every precaution.
Indeed. All right. For those university students new to our area, of course, being in a situation like this, I'm sure is nerve-wracking, even for the parents.
Oh man, for everyone involved, the students and the parents who might live elsewhere in the country, they've just dropped off their child to Florida, and they're like, oh, you might experience a hurricane one day. Well, it turns out the very first week of school, you're dealing with something that this area has never dealt with before. Well, we talked to some students who said they were grateful that the universities decided to close, so they didn't have to stress about class today.
Right.
They could just hunker down in their dorms or their apartments. Here's a little bit of what they had to say.
I am also a little bit anxious about it, but overall, I'm just praying for areas that are going to be more affected than Tallahassee, and just kind of getting ready to hunker down and preparing for the worst, but also staying positive. So.
And students who had family nearby, they helped them get groceries and fresh supplies. And of course, some chose to go home if that was driving distance this week. But others, of course, if they're from far away, they had no choice but to hunker down.
Yeah, to hunker down, stay inside. But I'm sure everyone was scared or, but hopefully they're keeping those nerves in check.
Right. Once you're in the middle of it, I think it's the waiting that's the hardest part. And then once you're in the middle of it, of course, if you're in Perry right now, it's still probably very frightening.
Right.
But if you're in Tallahassee, the winds are still serious and you shouldn't be out on the roads, but it's probably more manageable now that you know that you can survive it, right?
Yeah, so those students, they're very grateful. We know FSU and TCC closed through Friday, and FAMU closed until after Labor Day through Tuesday. So
I believe we have a look at a road closure. This is in the Tampa area. I believe that's what we're looking at. I-275. This is near St. Petersburg. And our Cody Butler in the Emergency Operations Center got word from Kevin Guthrie, who directs the Department of Emergency Management, that a part of the interstate had either fallen off or was no longer structurally sound. So you can see it looks like they've roped off a bridge there, one lane of it.
Right.
So that's obviously not in our viewing area, but a sign, and they dealt with the effects much earlier than our region did. So.
Yep. So they're working on that. Of course, here our roads are still dangerous. We've already seen at least 2 crashes that we heard of, and that was early this morning on I-10. It is wet out there. That wind is blowing. So everyone, please be careful. Stay inside if you can.
Absolutely. All right. Rob Nucatola is back and ready to go. Rob, have we received word yet of a landfall, or are we still awaiting that?
Still waiting for the official word to be disseminated, but if you look at where it is, it's over land now. And I think we're about 10 or 12 minutes away from the 8 o'clock update, so we'll see what goes on with that. Nothing changed since the last time we spoke. Still classified as a Category 3 with those winds at 125 miles per hour, but encouraging that before landfall we saw some weakening, and I do expect that to continue now that the core itself looks to be over land. We're still going to talk about those same areas for the hurricane warnings, but most of that is going to be shifting a little bit more towards the east. Those tropical storm warnings a little bit more towards the north and west. Let's get to the nuts and bolts here. And we see the system itself making its way up towards the Taylor County coast, still with that little bit of an east twirl to it. And if you get a little bit to the north and west, really things start to drop off in a hurry, and there's a pretty clear back edge to all the rain from like Dothan, Alabama over towards Panama City. We'll zoom in, and you can see maybe right there, just south of Perry, that's where it looks like the core is, very tiny core, and it started getting smaller and smaller for maybe like the last couple of hours. So as we zoom in even farther, looks like just north of Keaton Beach, just south of Perry, that's where the landfall most likely occurred. We'll get the official word at some point from the National Hurricane Center. And now that it's over land, cut off from its fuel, those warm Gulf waters, over the next hour and 2 and 3, we should watch for some steady weakening, hopefully rapid and steady weakening, so that way things start to calm down. But for the next hour or two, still significant rain, still significant wind. I've seen some winds sustained in the 35 to 40 mile per hour range around Perry. So that's been the strongest sustained winds that I've been seeing. As far as the water vapor imagery goes, we can see more of like an oblong blob out there. It looks more like a jelly bean or a kidney or something than that real concentric circle that we saw earlier. And that's because it is cut off from its fuel source and it is starting to weaken a little bit more. The tropical radar will show that there it goes, right up near Keaton Beach. And you can still see some pretty significant bands of rain. I mean, this one just north of Keaton Beach, just up to Perry right now, along the highway, maybe right along Highway 19, that's going to be a spot where there's some significant rain coming down, some of the heaviest, because that's where that core is. So this is going to be the area maybe between Perry and Salem, heading up over towards Dowling Park maybe in the next 45 minutes or so. That's going to be the spot that I would expect to find the most significant rain, the heaviest rain, the frequent lightning, and of course those strongest winds, and we'll see what kind of information we can get for you from those areas. Now, some of the accumulated rainfall over the past 12 hours, we're going to find some of the bigger rainfall totals, of course, offshore, closest to where the storm spent the most time, but we've got a lot of this blue color, which is that 2-inch range, and I think we're going to start to see more of that spread out to more areas. I think when all is said and done, there'll be some spots up over 5 inches, but I think at this point, we're going to see more widespread, maybe 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 inch rain, and that's certainly going to be enough. That storm surge, no joke. It was good that this happened when it did, when we're talking low tides, but that water is still piling up and it's still going to be way above normal. We saw some of the video from Horseshoe Beach and some of the other areas where there was just so much water up over those docks, going to be up across those roads too. And many of those roads down near the coast, you know where I'm talking about, always has some trouble when you have landfalling systems anywhere nearby, especially when it's real close by. At Keaton Beach, those 28 mile per hour winds, maybe a couple of spots over the next few hours, they get up over 50. And for most of the area, that's the kind of winds that I'm expecting. I'm not expecting 100 mile per hour sustained winds. We may get some gusts to 80 or 90, but I think for the most part, we're probably going to be in that 20 to 50 mile per hour range, maybe 30 to 60. And that is certainly enough to cause all kinds of trouble and all kinds of damage. So we'll certainly continue to monitor that and bring you updates as we see more of those wind gusts and more of that as we go through the day. But once we get past lunchtime, things should be starting to calm down. Here's a few more of those futurecast winds, and you can see a lot of the higher numbers shifting a little bit more to the east as we get to 10, 11 noontime. And then once we get past lunchtime, most of those numbers getting into what we'd call a breezy range, right? I like to call it breezy when it's between like 10 and 20 or 12 and 24 miles per hour. Once it gets up over 25 and gets close to 30, that's when we start calling it windy for a mile. So I think that's going to be the range that a lot of us are in after lunch. But from now until lunch, these next 3 or 4 hours, that's where we're going to be more prime time. You got something? Official landfall. 7:45 a.m. Keaton Beach, official landfall. All right, there we go. And now what that means for us is we can expect some weakening, hopefully rapid weakening. Now this is in Steinhatchee. We're taking a look at this. That's a lot of water. Look at that house. Look at that structure there. The water's climbing up the walls, up those trees, and still streaming in from the Gulf. So yeah, we're going to find lots of spots like this. And can you see the dumpster sliding across the screen? Wow, that is some significant rain and water there. And all of those areas along the coast, especially Taylor and Dixie counties, but I think into parts of Jefferson too, those are going to be the areas where we see those highest amounts of surge and so much water out there. And that is going to be a problem for several days to get cleaned up. So hopefully folks in those areas are in higher ground and in shelters and away from those mobile homes that may be a little bit more susceptible to the damage from this kind of surge. I do expect to find plenty of those wind gusts over the next few hours. Look in Perry, the forecast maybe up to a 64-mile-per-hour wind gust coming in recently. That's got to be closest to where that core is. So without a doubt, that's going to be the area that's going to find some of the strongest winds and some of the most significant rains. Flooding is going to be a real potential across much of the area. And you can certainly pick out where that comma is, where that core is, right south of Perry right now. That is going to be the spot that not only has the heaviest winds, but those heaviest rains, but the strongest winds. And as that continues to lift off to the north and to the east, areas into Madison County, especially southeastern Madison County, into more of northern Lafayette County, and into western Sewanee County. These are going to be the areas where what's left of that core is trying to hold together will bring with it the strongest winds and the most significant rains. Now, further west of there, especially through parts of Wakulla and Leon County and into South Georgia, there's still going to be quite a bit of rain, and there's still going to be quite a bit of wind, and it's still going to cause problems in many areas. It's just not going to be as vigorous as some of the winds that will take closest to that core. Because remember, it's the stuff near the core, and this is a very small core. Sometimes you have systems that have a 100-mile core. This has got like a 10-mile core, so very, very different with a system like this one as it works its way north. We still have that extreme wind warning for Taylor, Dixie, and Lafayette counties. And of course, we are expecting strong winds moving through more of Sewanee and Hamilton and Eccles County, and probably for Madison and Lowndes counties as well, because that's where those winds are headed. If we look back a little bit more to the north and to the west, we're going to find away from the core still some significant rains, right? Around Monticello, over towards Asheville, up towards Quitman and Valdosta, some more of those moderate rains, and they're going to continue and persist for a couple hours. So that's going to really pile up those rainfall accumulations. And there, we've got this stripe that's wrapping around the core, almost like a second core, but a much weaker one that extends out maybe 50 miles from where that main core is, from Wakulla County up through Leon County. Those are some significant rains too, and that band is going to wrap around the system, so it's going to find more areas as the system itself moves more to the north and to the east. So all that is what we're going to be dealing with for the next couple of hours. These next couple of hours are going to be the wettest, they're going to be the windiest, but hopefully the system itself will continue to weaken, and quickly. It is going to continue to weaken, but the speed at which it weakens is certainly going to be something that areas from Taylor County through Lafayette and Sewanee and Hamilton and Eccles counties are going to be the most interested in. And yeah, I do think that's a real possibility. Kind of crazy how that back edge is so sharp and so abrupt from near Dothan, Alabama towards Panama City, where it's barely raining, if at all. So it's not that far back to the west where there's not much going on, just slightly breezy day. But a lot of our area, close to that core, getting the full brunt of this storm. And you can see that the Futurecast has taken a lot of that rain each time it updates. It takes a little bit more of the rain a little bit further north and a little bit further east, away from more of our area. We've got a couple hours left to go through with this, and once we get past that, then we'll start to see some improvement. I still think there'll be some wraparound showers, part of the forecast later on this afternoon and this evening, but for the most part, before lunchtime, that's going to be when we have the most rain, and really, it's like the next 2 hours that are going to be the busiest times. Looks like the 745 update is in, so that's going to be the one that updated the landfall. Still Category 3, 125-mile-per-hour sustained winds. The pressure's at 949, and it's moving to the north-northeast at 18. So not a lot of change with it yet. But like I say, we get that next advisory at 8 o'clock. That's a more intermediate advisory. We'll see what that one tells us. And as we go through the next couple of hours, guys, that's when we can start to expect some changes. It'll be interesting now that the sun is up. Not only will we be able to look at the visible satellite imagery, but we'll also be able to see more of those cameras from all around the area and see what actually happened with all the wind and all the rain and all the surge, because that's going to really give us a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with in all those areas. So it'll be a pretty good time now to start cycling through all those cameras and get an idea of what's happening now that the sun is up, and we can start, or not the sun is up, but now that the sun is out, and we can see more things, guys.
Yeah, Rob, historic landfall, as you mentioned, officially 7:45 near Keaton Beach. So unfortunately, Keaton Beach will be one of those communities remembered for a landfalling hurricane right in their backyard. So it's still tough to kind of hear out loud.
Right, yeah.
And we saw that camera out of Steinhatchee. We'll have to, of course, wait and see the impact for all of Taylor County.
Exactly. Taylor County already knew that,
Yeah.
that this was coming, and so they took those precautions ahead of time with the evacuations they had in order, getting people out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe we have a camera we're trying to pull up in the Taylor County area. Let me know if we did lose it, so that might be a sign of the conditions in Taylor County. We were trying to show you US 19 and US 98. We have a still image, I believe, from that camera
Let's take
shot.
a look at that.
So this is, US 19 at US 98, right there in the heart of Perry.
Wow.
So, still image, still worth 10,000 words, right?
Indeed, and hopefully those roads stay just like that as far as with no cars on them.
Absolutely. And we've seen reports on social media of power flashes in Perry, power, of course, going out. We've been keeping track of the power outages all morning long, and they've skyrocketed. I just checked the city's website in Tallahassee, where there are over 1,100 power customers without power, or 11,000 rather, I believe, in the city of Tallahassee. And hopefully we can get a power outage update for you in the near future.
I did get a text a little while ago about Gaston County saying a chairman and the commissioners there gave an update of 560 power outages reported by Talquin storm at that time. So we're still working on those, and hopefully the people can get their power restored as soon as possible. But of course, it takes a little patience sometimes.
It does.
We did know that this would be a big part of all of this. When we first started talking about Idalia, we knew that power outages would happen. So hopefully they can get those outages taken care of, and even the road closures that is happening at this time. Portions of Mahan Drive from I-10 heading towards a town closed right now.
That's obviously a big thoroughfare into the downtown Tallahassee. So as we said, don't be on the roads if you can't. Portions of Thomasville Road near I-10 closed in both directions. Of course, another very busy stretch of road.
And also portions of Capitol Circle northeast going southbound. Anytime you talk about Capitol Circle, of course, that is a big part, even southeast going northbound.
Yeah, and Tram Road, westbound, also on that list. And while we couldn't fit it on the graphic, much of North Meridian Road, we're told, closed in both directions. So basically, no matter where you are in town, if you're trying to get from point A to point B, you probably can.
It'd be very tough, and especially that North Meridian Road, that's always a scary area. So
lots of
please
trees
be
nearby.
careful. Yes, indeed.
We have some more to share with you. This is just coming right into our newsroom here outside of Tallahassee. US 319 Crawfordville Highway closed. That's heading north towards the Capitol to TLH, and Woodville Highway heading towards Tallahassee also closed.
And meanwhile, both directions of US 98 from East Point to Apalachicola also closed. So a lot of road closures to deal with. We even have some in South Georgia right now.
Yeah, State Road 94 heading from Statenville to Valdosta is closed. The southbound portion of the 319 bypass in Thomasville, another very busy stretch, that's closed.
Oh yeah, indeed. As is the Thomasville portion of Highway 84 in both directions.
So yeah, it's not just a Florida problem right now, as we suspected. And Highway 98 in Franklin County, no surprises. As Rob and Josh had mentioned, that road will wash out with a weak tropical storm.
Yes.
So no surprise there, but a good reminder nevertheless.
Indeed. The Tallahassee Fire Department sharing a photo with us just a little while ago, and inside of their operations, I wonder if we can share that. They say they've had increased staffing, as with many agencies around our area, deployed extra units, and especially depending on the area, I'm sure who is going where, but they have been making sure to be ready so that they can have this deployment of going to affected areas.
Yeah, it's all hands on deck for the fire department, for the police department, for the sheriff's office, every agency. So it's good to know that they are ready to respond, and we're approaching the time where they can actually start going out. We're not there yet. Rob said we still have a couple hours, but soon that recovery part of things can begin.
Yeah, that's the tough part there. Let's go ahead and take a look outside. This is that Steinhatchee camera, the WeatherStem camera there.
Yeah, you can see the building there in front of the marina taking on water. Again, if you've seen this shot in normal times, it really puts this into context. because this is supposed to be a beautiful river view, but that looks like a lake or an ocean, really.
Yeah, that water is just has gotten higher and higher as we've been looking at it over the past few hours this morning.
So yeah, that's the dangerous storm surge, Josh, that we talked about, that is simply not survivable once you get to a certain level. And that's really what we're seeing, right?
Dangerous. Josh.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. You can see it right there. We actually looked at that camera earlier this morning when it was still dark out. You could see that whole building. None of that water that was out, extended beyond the docks, that wasn't there before. That's what happens when you have these winds piling up water. The water has nowhere to go. It fills up on the coast, and you're left with a lot of life-threatening storm surge like it was predicted and like we're seeing right now. Here's the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. This just came out at 8 a.m. Also, if you missed it, we did have a confirmed landfall. It has moved onshore around the Keaton Beach area around 7:45 a.m., so just about 15 to 20 minutes ago, it did finally reach the Florida Big Bend coast in Taylor County. Now, this new update, it seems like it is continuing to weaken. Sustained winds now at 120 miles per hour. This is good news. This is things that we want to see. And it will continue to happen as it continues to make its way onshore. It's not going to be able to have any more fuel because we know tropical systems, they need warm water. That's how they operate. And without it, it's going to continue to weaken. But the thing is, it's moving so quickly, 18 miles per hour, that it's going to be able to hold its strength pretty well as it makes its way across the rest of our southeastern inland Big Bend counties, also our south central Georgia counties. Don't worry, we're watching you very closely. I'm talking about Lowndes, Clinch, Eccles, and Lanier County. You're going to be up next after Idalia gets through the rest of the southeast Big Bend. Let's put in that forecast track. It's moving pretty quickly. We're talking about getting to the edge of, I'd say, Lanier and Clinch counties by 2 o'clock. But still by then, there's a good chance that Idalia could still be a Category 2 hurricane. So it's still going to be packing some very, very damaging wind gusts. It's going to cause lots more power outages there. It's going to leave a lot more trees down and a lot more debris in the roadways. But once again, the good thing is it's going to move on quickly. It should be out of our area by the time we get to later on this afternoon, especially into this evening. That's when we can start to get out there and figure out what we need to do. And we can do that even earlier, the further south and the further west that we are. But of course, we still got to give it another couple of hours. This is a powerful storm, and it is still very close. By the time we get to Thursday, it makes its way off the coast of the Carolinas, and it's out into the Atlantic. Here's Idalia on the radar picture right now. You can clearly see this is the center of circulation. It is onshore. The worst of it is in Perry right now. If you're watching in Perry, there's a good chance you don't have any power right now. These are some very, very damaging winds rolling through, powerful thunderstorms, heavy, heavy downpours. So if you're watching us right now, maybe you're on your phones, maybe you're on your laptops, stay inside. Stay in the lowest level of your home. Stay away from windows. This is the worst of this storm right now, what you're going to be experiencing over the next hour or so as the core of Idalia continues over portions of Perry and the rest of Taylor County and to Lafayette County too. Mayo, I'm looking at you. You're on the outer edge of these really, really strong hurricane force winds. All right, so once again, just like folks in Perry, if you're in Mayo, you need to stay inside on that lowest level of your home as well. We've got some of those extreme wind warnings out. We'll get to those in just a second. I just want to talk about how large this storm is. I mean, we're talking about moderate to heavy showers extending all the way through Valdosta across all of our South Georgia counties until you get to, say, Miller and Seminole counties. But still, I still see some of those moderate showers now working their way towards the west. Tallahassee, up through, I'd say around just to the north there of Greenville is where we see that one strong band continuing all the way down into Wakulla County, starting to wrap back around. So Wakulla, especially coastal portions, seeing some real bad wind and definitely lots of heavy downpours still. We've got a couple hours left to go. And of course, yes, this is the core. This is the strongest part of the hurricane, and it's moving straight through Perry proper right now, including Mayo. But once again, it's racing towards the northeast. Just stay hunkered down, folks, for another about hour or so. Then we'll get to reassess, and if we're in the clear, then we can let our guard down for folks in Taylor County and Perry, but not yet. We've got the extreme wind warnings out. We've got one for coastal portions of Taylor and Dixie County until 9:15 a.m. So that's got about another hour left to go. This one's a little bit further inland. This includes Perry, Mayo. This is new. It now includes Suwannee County. So it looks like they're adding on these extreme wind warnings in the path of Idalia. So if you are in Mayo, if you are in Suwannee County, including Live Oak, that means you're up next on this. This one might have a different expiration time. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but same thing. What this extreme wind warning means is that what you need to do is treat this like a tornado. You need to act like a tornado is coming through. It's a tornado warning. It's an extended one because it's a lot longer. It's going to take longer to come through, but the winds are just as damaging. So you need to be inside, once again, lowest level of your home, away from windows. Just ride this thing out, wait till it passes on by. Remember, the one by the coast is set to expire at 9:15. This inland one, I'm not sure if that includes Suwannee County yet. I'll get a check of that soon. That expires at 10:15. We've also got that tornado watch out for the eastern third of our area because of some of these feeder bands that are going to come up off the east side of Idalia. These could have some tornadic cells within them. You see one right there near Brunswick in southeast Georgia. That's a tornado warning. If we have a tornado warning pop up in our area, we're going to cut in no matter what's going on, and we'll get you the latest information on that. Good news is I don't see any of those right now. Unfortunately, what we're seeing a lot of is storm surge. This was the potential peak storm surge forecast that we had, this 12 to 16 feet. That's where we're seeing a lot of inundation stretching all the way down, especially that shot there in Steinhatchee. We're expecting that to definitely get the worst of it based on where Idalia made landfall with those winds out of the south and out of the west, just piling up water onto the coast. Here's some of our current winds right now across the area. They're still getting up high. 28 sustained right now in Tallahassee, 49 miles per hour in Perry. These aren't gusts. These are the actual wind speeds. Now, I think we're going to get another view of Steinhatchee right now just to check on in and see what's going on. I don't think it's good scene out there. Wow. The wind is roaring. You can see all the palms. Look how far the water goes up the power poles. We're looking at least several feet here. Obviously can't tell for sure an exact number, but based on how far up these trees and these power poles, look at that house. That is what we call unsurvivable storm surge. It's up to the roof of a house. That's verifying that 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. That's what happens when you have a major hurricane come through in one of the most storm surge vulnerable sections of the United States. It's an unfortunate situation that it's unraveling. I just do hope that most folks in those evacuation areas did go ahead and get out, but I'm sure we're going to get a whole lot more information over the next several hours. Let's continue to move on. Let's look at some of these wind gusts around the area. Perry, definitely still the most concerned about you right now. We just got a wind gust of 71 miles per hour. Once again, that's because you're in the worst part of the storm right now. Wind gusts of 41 in Tallahassee, 43 in Valdosta. That's only going to get worse for you folks in Lowndes County. 33 there in Quincy, 28 right now in Bainbridge, 33 in Moultrie. So we're going to continue to see more of those power outages with wind gusts like these. Let's look at the futurecast to get an idea of where the bad winds are going next. Right now, the center of the storm is in Perry. As we move on, say later on this morning, then we're looking at spots like Live Oak, Hamilton County, Valdosta, the rest of Lowndes, over into Clinch and Eccles County as well. Madison County too, watching very closely there because you're going to be very close to that core of the storm where those strongest winds and wind gusts are. Once we move on into earlier this afternoon, that's when it can start to exit portions of Clinch County. Then the further away it gets by that point, by the time we get to this evening, the winds have noticeably calmed down across the area. And lastly, of course, we've got the rain concerns. We've still got that flood watch out. These are some of the updated rainfall totals. More and more spots are now up to 2 to 3 inches. Everywhere that you see in blue is about 2 to 3 inches of rain so far. And these darker blues, once you start to get the purple colors, that's upwards of 4 inches in some isolated spots. So these rainfall totals continue to climb, and they're going to continue to climb as well. We've got a whole lot more rain left to go. Look at the futurecast. There's the center of circulation. We've got got a lot of precipitation on the north and west side of this system, and that's just going to continue to stream across the Big Bend in South Georgia. Eventually, by the time we get to this afternoon, we're looking at less rain for the Big Bend, but still a lot for some of our South Georgia, especially our South Central Georgia counties. And then once it moves on out, remember, later on this afternoon and this evening, if you're going to be out there doing some recovery efforts, there's going to be a few more scattered showers and storms on the backside of this thing, so be prepared for that. If you're going to be outdoors, bring a rain jacket. But remember, we're not outdoors yet. We've got a few more hours left to go. As soon as things start to look a little bit more safe out there, of course, we'll let you know. But now, send it back to Jacob and Lenitra.
All right, thanks, Josh. Yeah, like you said, we're not out of the woods yet,
No.
just because that landfall did happen at 7:45 officially in Keaton Beach, but there's still a lot to make sure we keep our eye on.
Yeah, a lot we still don't know. We've tried to pull up that Perry camera and it froze, so we don't exactly know how our friends in Perry are handling it right now. And Keaton Beach, where it made landfall, unfortunately, there's no live camera opportunity there. But we did see Steenhatchee not far away and the surge there, so we can only assume the surge isn't a good situation either in Keaton Beach.
All right, we'll go ahead and take a look now at the 8 a.m. power outage map. And yep, those numbers have gone up. Tallahassee, last time it was about 6,000 the last time we saw it, now at 12,925. Talquin, 16,370. And of course, that Talquin is their entire coverage area, which does cover Gaston and Leon counties there. Then the Tri-County area, 9,857. Ooh, and look at Thomasville, Jacob.
Yeah,
My
it
goodness,
finally
that
showed
number,
up. Yeah, and that's what we figured as the storm, moved inland. That Georgia and Colquitt there, 1,900. Georgia Power checking in here, Swanee 7,200, and Duke Power, Duke Energy, for Franklin County and Wakulla County over 6,000 for sure. So this is what we expected, and we heard the governor say earlier for Southwest Florida, 100,000 customers lost power and got it back on.
Right.
Less than 24 hours, really,
Yeah.
less than 12 hours, I believe. So that timeline would be great for our area,
Right.
and they have a lot of help to get it done.
That
but
is
we
the
can't-
good thing, that mutual aid that they have with other states, people even coming in from Louisiana and other states coming in to help the city of Tallahassee when it comes to the utilities. So they were already on standby, and hopefully they can get the power restored as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us and you haven't been with us all night, we did want to just remind you that Xfinity is offering free Wi-Fi hotspots, not just in Tallahassee, as you see there, but all over the area, Panama City, and that's mostly to the west. Thankfully, they're out of the worst of Idalia, but from Tallahassee, and perhaps if we could go east and see if there are any east of Tallahassee, if that's west. We're doing our best here? All right, yeah, so there are a few in Perry even, I believe, and in Madison, so that's good to see that those Wi-Fi hotspots will be there for those hard-hit areas, so you can join them without being an Xfinity customer and for free. Important.
Yeah, it is for free, so it can help you make those connections you may need to make, communicate with people that you need to communicate with, give them those updates, let them know what's going on, because we know a lot of people have been anxious and a little nervous about what's been happening. So that's why we've been doing our best to keep everybody informed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a frightening situation for every one of us.
Yes,
From
yes,
us here on the
yes.
desk, to our meteorologists, to the folks living on the coast. So
Right.
having that communication is helpful.
And, officials are asking people to still stay inside. We know we talked about a landfall already happening, but that doesn't mean, everything's over. So be careful out there, because they're saying there's no help coming, right? It's still a lot going on. Franklin County said if winds reach 45 miles an hour, St. George Island Bridge will close. Alligator Point, no emergency services if this happens. So that wind is still out there.
Yeah.
So that means those emergency personnel, they cannot be out there doing certain things in these types of conditions.
Absolutely, and I believe those conditions were met. Now, Jefferson County, very similar situation. They've actually they've suspended their emergency service at 8:30 this morning, or rather that would have been 8:30 yesterday, or they're planning to at 8:30 this morning. So there's a lot of fluid with the timeline, but the bottom line is that if you need emergency assistance, it might be hard for them to come to your home.
Yeah, well, Cullah County, once the winds reach a sustained level of 35 miles an hour, it is unsafe for emergency services to respond to those calls. So emergency personnel, they won't be able to get out there. So still some touchy and risky conditions out there right now. I can still hear the rain here in our studio. It is kind of interesting. I've been sitting here, it's like the sound of the rain on the studio has been just that sound, a constant sound over the past several hours. So please be careful out there, everyone.
For sure. We ran through the list of road closures a few minutes ago. If you hadn't seen that, every big road in town seemed to have some sort of closure, from Capitol Circle to Thomasville Road to Meridian Road to Crawfordville Highway. So lots of road closures down. Here locally, we've heard thunderstorms over the summer come across our roof and sound even more intense than what we've heard here in Tallahassee. And someone tagged me on Twitter showing some of their damage in a Tallahassee home, and it was minor. And folks are saying this seems minor, which could be true at the moment, but that could always change with a tropical system. And that's what Rob and Josh have been hitting home, that even though it shifted to the east, it made landfall in Taylor. Leon maybe didn't get the worst of it, but it's still dangerous, especially because of those road closures.
Still dangerous, and minor, be grateful for that minor.
Sure.
We were preparing for the worst, and I know it gets frustrating for some people. They're like, oh, I did all of this preparing for nothing. You guys told me to do this, you told me to do that, and get this and get that. Yeah, because wouldn't you rather be prepared and not need it than to need it and not be prepared?
100%.
Right.
Absolutely. This is a camera we've checked in on a few times, the WeatherStim camera at St. Mark's, and the trees there are dancing with the wind, I'm no expert. It doesn't look like there's a surge issue going on here, and maybe Rob, once he's joining us again, he could fill us in. I know there was a surge threat in the St. Mark's area, and the lighthouse there is right on the coast, but it doesn't appear, especially nothing like the Steenhatchee camera we saw.
Right. Yeah, but we do know that St. Mark's, they do have a history of flooding.
Sure.
So hopefully everything around there is okay. Oh, we got a shot from Perry. Right, this is a live view, apparently courtesy WPLG.
So you can see they're riding out the storm in Taylor County, and so this would be some of the worst and still some of the most significant wind threat and rain threat. So you can see this is no joke.
No joke at all. I see someone holding a camera phone out there.
So,
That's what happens. And it sounded like we just had a wind gust here. Not sure what that sound was. We just heard.
Weird sounds. That's not unusual when the storms come up blowing. So I think we've kind of seen a good survey. And Rob, I don't know if you can break it down from that St. Mark's camera, if you think that's a surge situation or not.
One of the things, like at St. Mark's, is this different wind direction, right? The winds in St. Mark's circulating around the storm should be helping to push the water away from the shore, not towards the shore. And that makes a big difference in that surge potential. So as long as the winds continue circulating around the storm, for areas like St. Mark's and areas in Franklin County, that wind's coming from the north. It's not coming in from the south, and that makes a big difference in that surge. But areas of Dixie County, areas of Taylor County, that's where those winds are coming in from the south or from the west, and that's going to pile that water up against the coast. So that's going to make a huge difference. We're watching the latest situation here with Idalia. It's moving to the north at 18, with the northeast at 18 miles per hour, still with 120 mile per hour sustained winds. This is going to go back to the 8 o'clock advisory. I suspect that over the next hour, when we get that next advisory, things are going to drop even more, and that's going to be excellent news, but this is by no means over. We've got a couple hours of serious water, serious wind, especially in some of our easternmost areas. Here's what it looks like, and that core struggling, but the storm itself still maintaining plenty of circulation and still maintaining plenty of wind and rain. That back edge is very distinct, and it's starting to move a little bit more towards the east, so maybe some of our western counties will start to see some of those rains calm down. But it's those areas with the darkest colors right around that core and that's going to include Perry. That's where we've got some of those strongest winds, and that's going to maybe get up to the city of Madison across I-10, maybe right over towards Live Oak right now and right near Mayo. These are going to be the spots where the winds are going to be the strongest, the rains are going to be the most impressive. That video that we saw from Perry just a little while ago will certainly show us that too. Here's that back edge and that drier air that's trying to work its way from west to east. And when you put it all together on the radar, what you end up seeing are very few showers out once you get past like Dothan and Panama City. You still have a pretty good stripe of pretty significant rain coming through parts of Thomas County, Leon County, and Wakulla County. But the most vigorous rain right now that we're seeing is this stuff right here. And that's what's coming down from just north of Perry, just north of Highway 27, maybe over towards Dowling Park. So some of those areas that are going to be in Taylor County and then lifting towards southeastern Madison County and trying to slide over a little bit more towards Hamilton County and into parts of Lafayette and Sewanee. This is the bullseye right now where that core is, or what's left of that core, and that's where we're going to find the most significant rains and some of those strongest winds. Now, so far, the rainfall accumulations over the past 12 hours are mostly in the 2 to 4 inch range. You got a couple of spots a little bit more than that, but most of that's offshore. Now, as we go through the next 2 hours and we continue to see these heavy stripes of rain, we're likely going to see some of those spots get up over 5 or 6 or 7 inches worth of rain. And as far as those peak storm surge potentials go, it's still going to be our easternmost counties where the wind is pushing the water towards the shore, as opposed to our westernmost counties where at least currently the winds are pulling it away from the shore. But we'll certainly keep our eyes on all of that. All right, the forecast winds and the winds that we're seeing, how about around Keaton Beach, up over 60 miles per hour? That's absolutely no joke, but much different when you go farther to the west. Look at Apalachicola, forecast to stay below 20 miles per hour. And then we get past lunchtime, and even Keaton Beach, we're talking around 20 miles per hour. So very big difference, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours from now. But this is the time that everything is going to be at its biggest. And as a matter of fact, some of those winds around the area, especially in our eastern spots, are going to be up over 35, maybe up over 55 to near 60 miles per hour. So that's where that core is for the next couple of hours. And as it moves its way up towards Lowndes County and into more of southeastern Georgia, that's where the strongest winds will go. The rest of the area by lunchtime, we're talking about a breezy day, and that's it. But for these next couple of hours, windy and wet for sure, and those strong winds are absolutely going to be part of the forecast. Here are those current winds, and we see most of the area with those north winds as the storm itself is a little bit more towards the east. And check out Perry. The sustained winds, 62 miles per hour. So that's why the trees are bending the way that they're bending. That's why it looks the way it does there. That's closest to the core, but that's the only spot right now reporting winds like that. I'm not getting a report from Live Oak, but I do suspect we're going to see some stronger winds moving in that direction over the next little while. So yeah, plenty to watch with those winds, and some of those wind gusts that I've been seeing. Definitely saw some of those 40-mile wind gusts earlier in Apalachicola, but how about the ones in Perry, up over 70 now, and 85-mile-per-hour wind gust in Perry. So that's where that core is. That's where the dangerous or the most dangerous stuff is. And of course, that's where we're going to be watching until this system moves further away. Hopefully it happens sooner, not later. I don't see much. No, we're going to talk about the flood. What did you say? We're going to go back to Perry? Let me see the camera from Perry. All right, so there we go. That's a road in Perry. That's Florida 501. And you can see the wind pulling the rain in sheets across the road. That doesn't look like anything you want to be outside in for sure, and that looks like it's going to be something that's going to cause all kinds of damage for the next little while. I mean, that is constant waves of rain being blown across the street in sheets, and that is going to be something that handles until the core itself moves on a little bit more. Flood watches across the board are going to continue to be something we're keeping our eyes on, especially eastern parts of the Big Bend. Here's where we are on the radar, and we only see one area where we're more than yellow. And what that tells us is the most intense rain is in that one spot, and it's between Madison and Perry right now. So that's where the most intense rain is, just like the video we showed you. But we still have some pretty moderate rains falling through more of Wakulla County, much of Leon County, up through Thomas, past Moultrie, all the way up towards Adel and Tifton. So that's the spiral band coming around the core. The core itself very small, but those areas maybe just north of that core right now experiencing those strongest rains and winds, and that will continue to be the location that we're most concerned with. It looks like they've extended the extreme wind warning now to include parts of Madison County, Lafayette, and Suwannee counties, because that's where that core is headed. So yeah, a lot to watch with that core as it works its way more to the north and to the east. And that does mean areas into Hamilton County, Eccles County, Lowndes County, the I-75 corridor, maybe just south of Valdosta over the next couple of hours. That's where this core is headed. So that means that's where the worst of the weather is headed. It should get weaker as it moves to the north and to the northeast, but it's certainly going to still be packing a punch. Eventually, in a couple of hours, these more moderate rains to heavy rains that are falling across central parts of the area should start to taper off, and those areas to the west that are only getting some light rains should continue to taper off. So there's good news for western areas before it's going to get better for eastern areas. You can see how the storm has moved. It had that swing to the east around 3 o'clock this morning or 4 o'clock this morning. That made a big difference for where the landfall was going to be, and that made a huge difference for areas like Wakulla County and Jefferson County and Franklin County. But now it puts the bullseye over much of Taylor and Madison and Lafayette and Suwannee and Hamilton and Eccles counties. So that's where we're going to be watching this storm to continue going and to take the biggest rains and the most significant winds with it, and seeing those wind gusts up over 80 miles per hour, seeing those sustained winds up over 60 miles per hour. And that's at the surface. That's the measurable stuff. That's really dangerous and really scary. No joke with this system whatsoever. Here's a look at the futurecast. By 11:30, a lot of the activity to the west is weakening. Some showers still lingering along Highway 84 and north, but should continue to pull away from the area by lunchtime and shortly after. And then by later on this afternoon and this evening, we're tapering off to just some showers and just some breezy conditions, and then things should start to quiet down for the next couple of days. And hopefully we bring in a little bit of cooler air. I mean, if we're going to put up with a big storm, it would be nice to get a small reward of a little bit less humid, a little bit less hot, right? And I think that's a real possibility over the next couple of days. Haven't been looking much at the future forecast part of the weather today because we've been focusing on the tropical system, but maybe I'll start putting some of that together so we can start looking at that more extended forecast, and maybe we have some better news to look forward to heading into the holiday weekend. I'll get to that, guys. As a matter of fact, I'll send it to you, and then I can start working on that now.
Sounds like a plan. We'd love to start talking about a brighter tomorrow, literally. But of course, many communities still really under the gun here. So we'll of course keep that in mind. Now, we've been checking in periodically throughout the morning and overnight hours with Brianna Shaw and Madison Glazer, our reporters stationed at shelters in Leon County.
Right. We'll go ahead and check in with Brianna right now, the shelter that's at Lincoln High School in Tallahassee. Brianna, how are things looking right now?
Jacob, Lenitra, it's getting pretty real out here. As you can see, the rain and the wind have definitely picked up since we last checked in. Just moments ago, before you guys checked in with us, the door flew open. So I think they're trying to handle that. And as you can see here, lots of wind, and we're right outside of the shelter here at Lincoln High School, and we're underneath an awning. As you can see, I had my hood on because the wind is blowing the rain, and you can see these trees, the branches blowing in the wind. The leaves are blowing right off the branches, leaves all over the ground. Lots of puddles in the parking lot just feet away. We've definitely heard some thunder. We've seen some lightning in the as well. At one point, the lights were going in and out. The lights were flickering both inside and outside of the shelter. I was speaking with folks who came outside to get some air, and they were just checking things out, seeing what was going on. But most of them have migrated back into the shelter. And so again, if you're just waking up with us and you're joining us, we are here outside of the shelter here at Lincoln High School. Definitely, as I said, wind picked up. You can see that the wind is really sweeping the rain. I'm not sure if you can see it on the ground, but it's blowing pretty hard. And as you can see here, I'm not sure if you can tell, we're underneath an awning. And again, the wind just very strong, blowing the rain right here in this direction. And we've been speaking with folks here, and of course there was some curiosity, so they came outside to see what was going on. About maybe 2 people still outside with us, just getting some air, but most people have migrated back into the shelter as we saw things pick up. And as we know, Hurricane Idalia has definitely made landfall, and we're seeing those conditions here. I'm going to send it to you all back in the studio, but of course we will send you another update the next time you check in.
All right, Brianna, thanks so much. And yeah, we are starting to see the effects here in Leon County.
Oh, yeah.
And we're about to go over some road closure reminders. So there is a real impact here in Leon, but it really pales in comparison to what we've also seen in Taylor County, of course, closer to the center of the storm. And we'll get to that in a moment, too.
Right, yeah, and before those road closures, too, we'll go ahead and take a live look at the State Emergency Operations Center.
Or at least we wanted to. So.
All right, we will not do that. We'll go ahead and look at those road closures.
Yeah, as expected, many roads in Perry shut down, including US 19 north of town in both directions. US 27 westbound heading into Perry also closed.
Highway 129. That's connecting Live Oak to Hamilton. That is shut down as well. State Road 51 heading north from Mayo to Live Oak.
Yeah, and just into the newsroom, all westbound lanes of I-10 in Jefferson County are closed. I believe FHP describing this as a major incident.
Wow.
So yeah, no travel westbound on I-10. And those are some of the closures we just read off. So if you want to see them in visual format, there you go. I wouldn't travel anywhere in Taylor County, but those roads specifically are closed. And then, in South Georgia, we have some more too.
Yeah, we sure do. State Road 91, both east and west of the city of Colquitt, closed. The southbound portion of the 319 bypass in Thomasville is back open. So that is some good news there, even though you probably still shouldn't be on it.
Probably not.
But it is open at 319 bypass in Thomasville.
Yeah, as is the Thomasville portion of Highway 84. Back open, but again, probably wouldn't recommend hitting the road.
All right, it is a good idea to stay put if you can, because as Rob was just saying, we're seeing still the strong winds and the rain that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, that's still happening. We can hear it even right outside the studio. It's like every now and then it'll get louder and it'll hold up a little bit, but then it still sounds serious out there.
It does, and we've really, those camera shots we've been able to take all morning and overnight have been really helpful. So we'll try to show some more, and Josh can help guide through some camera shots too as he gives you a forecast, because some of the images, Josh, still coming out of Taylor County, very frightening right now.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to see. I mean, the amount of storm surge in some spots like we saw there in Steinhatchee, it's overwhelming. And I know there's going to be a lot that comes out of this. But the thing is, we got to focus on the here and now, because this thing is still moving out there, especially across southeastern reaches of the Big Bend. We've got extreme wind warnings out right now. There's like 3 different ones. There's this coastal one, there's one that includes Perry and Mayo, and there's one for Madison and Live Oak. This coastal one is set to expire at 9:15. I think the worst of Idalia has moved past our coastal areas, but it is definitely pounding spots like the northeastern quadrant of Taylor County, northern Lafayette. It's about to enter portions of Madison and Suwannee County. So if you are there, what this warning means to you is that you should treat this like a tornado warning. You should get inside, get to the lowest level of your home, and stay away from windows. That's where you're going to be the safest while these really, really, really damaging winds roll on through your town. Here's the radar view right now of Idalia. You can definitely see this is that center of circulation. This right here is the worst part. Heavy, heavy downpours, lots of lightning in this little area right there, now entering southern portions of Madison County, about to get to that I-10 corridor. I think, Jacob, Lenitra, you guys just gave a report about I-10 closures westbound in Jefferson County. It's about to get a whole lot worse right now in Madison County. This is the worst of the storm right here in terms of wind and heavy downpour, so we'll have to see what comes out of that. But I'll tell you what, we were talking a whole lot about storm surge. We've still got some ongoing right now. Not only do we have the winds going onshore still in portions of Steinhatchee down through the rest of Taylor County, still down to Dixie County as well, but on the flip side of things, where the winds are coming out of the other direction, this is where you're probably seeing water getting sucked out of the bay right now, because the wind is flowing from inland, down into the bay. And we've seen this happen sometimes where the water starts to recede. It just depends which side of it you're on. This side, you're good to go. This side, as we've unfortunately seen, not at all. Here's a zoomed in view of that core right now. I've kind of given you this red little circle so you can tell where the most dangerous part of this storm is right now. Coastal areas starting to improve right now. The worst of it is now exiting out of Perry. Madison, if you are in Madison right now, this is your time to make sure that you are inside, lowest level of your home, away from windows. You've got some real gusty winds on the way to you right now. We've also got a tornado watch that's going to be in effect until 3 p.m. and the reason why is because we've got these feeder bands coming in on the southeastern side of Idalia. These have a history of producing some tornadic thunderstorms. What I mean by that, you're going to start to see some of those spin-ups. We've seen a couple tornado warnings. I'm keeping a very close eye on this, so is Rob. If one of those tornado warnings do happen to pop up in our area, then we're going to immediately come on and get you the latest information on that. Here's a new little graphic I want to show you. This is wind velocities. This shows us which direction the winds are moving, either away or towards the radar. Now, we know these winds like to spin counterclockwise. Now, see this little dark area right here? That's indicating very, very strong winds, the strongest winds out of anything else on this map. You can see some very strong winds right now, pushing now offshore out of Wakulla County, probably adding into that storm surge. But this right here is the most concerning, and this is heading right towards Madison right now. So once again, if you're in Madison, now's your time to get inside. This is fair warning. You've got some very, very dangerous conditions on the way. That's just to the south of I-10 right now, about to pass over. We've got the storm surge map here. We've pretty much already seen the effects of it, right? The worst of it is where it was anticipated along that Taylor County coastline down through Dixie County as well. Some of the water actually getting sucked out of the bay on this side just because of how the winds are positioned. And yes, we've seen that happen before. Speaking of winds, here's where we're at right now across the area. Wind speeds in Tallahassee are at 29 miles per hour. These are sustained winds, not just wind gusts. 25 in Moultrie right now, 51 in Perry. We're not getting the reading in Live Oak, and we don't have one in Madison, but I tell you, it's going to be very, very high right there. 20 in Valdosta right now, 22 in Bainbridge. I see 15 in Apalachicola. Here's the current wind gusts. That's bad. Perry, 78 right now. Once again in Madison, it's either going to be that or probably higher when that really burst of wind starts to move on through, as we saw there on the wind velocity radar. 39 miles per hour there in Tallahassee, 37 in Quincy, 39 in Valdosta, 67 still down at Lafayette High. This thing is still churning across southeastern portions of the Big Bend, creating lots of damaging wind gusts out there. Let's see where the winds are moving off to next. Right now, the worst of it, definitely right here. Southeastern portions of the Big Bend where that high wind warning is out right now. It's going to continue to move towards the north and towards the east. Spots like Valdosta in some of our south central Georgia counties. I'm talking about Brooks County over through Clinch, Eccles, even Lanier. We're talking about over the next hour or two, even as we head towards 11, maybe 11:30. That's when the worst of it is on the way to you. Then it will continue to move off towards the northeast. Once that happens, we're going to start to notice these wind gusts finally start to die back down. And by the time we get to this evening, everything is good to go out there. Still got your flood watch. Let's check in on some of that rainfall amounts right now. Yep, they're continuing to pile up. More and more spots now have a cumulative 2 to 3 inches. That's what you see in that blue there. Other spots, a little bit more like in that purple. Now we're talking about 4, upwards of 5 inches of rainfall. Here comes your futurecast. I think this is reading it pretty well right now in terms of where the center of circulation is, as well as the rainfall bands. We're going to continue to see some heavy rain across the Big Bend, most likely until around lunchtime hour. Then you're going to notice things start to lighten up a little bit out there. It's still going to be windy. We're still going to be seeing rain in South Georgia, some heavy rain as well, until this thing starts to move out of places like Clinch County by the middle of this afternoon. And then remember, we've got some of these scattered showers and storms that are going to be arriving on the backside of Idalia as well. And that's what we've got so far in the latest update. We're going to continue to track this. We're watching very closely, especially those in that direct path of that center of circulation with the strongest winds right now. And once again, this thing, it's going to move on out. by the time we get to Wednesday. But the thing is, if you're going to be out there during these recovery efforts, keep in mind there's going to be some more. And some of these storms could definitely pack a punch. I mean, the Futurecast is picking up some pretty heavy downpours with some of these cells that want to form late tonight into early tomorrow morning. Here's one more current view of that radar loop. Yes, this is still a large, powerful, dangerous storm. There's that center of circulation now entering Madison County. Lots of lightning, lots of heavy downpours, damaging wind. It's now leaving Taylor County and Lafayette County, so you'll notice conditions there are going to improve. So if you're in Perry and you just saw the worst of it there, things are starting to improve. Things are definitely improving if you're down by the coast. Other than that, we've still got some moderate to heavy bands of rain and constant wind gusts of around 30 to 40 miles per hour across a lot of our area right now, including Tallahassee, up through Valdosta, down in Thomasville as well, and especially still down by the coast on southwestern reaches of the Big Bend. Spots like Wakulla County, down through Franklin County as well. The good news is in Franklin County, I think we're seeing the winds kind of move further enough away where they're not having too much of an effect. But we're still seeing some pretty damaging wind gusts right now in Wakulla County as well. That's pretty much all we got right now for this update. Rob's going to be back soon. We'll talk a little bit more about the details.
All right, Josh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And if a tornado warning comes up or something, just let us know, and we'll get right back to the weather team as we watch those very concerning bands enter our area like we thought they would.
Exactly. Those conditions are still, iffy out there, making their way through the area. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some information from Wakulla County.
Yeah, we're getting word that they have officially suspended all emergency services in Wakulla County, again, because of the high winds that are now out across our viewing area, but especially for those in the coast that now the storm's moving inland. So that's the reason why no emergency services are available. That's coming from Jeff Yarborough, who we spoke to a couple hours ago, and he said that was certainly most likely the scenario that would happen, that it would not end up working out where they could still get to people if there was an emergency.
Right. And also along the coast in Wakulla County, we're starting to see some reverse storm surge already happening at the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah, we have that camera. I don't know if it's possible to pull it up, but it shows kind of the opposite of what we saw in Steinhatchee, right? Instead of the water coming in, it's this, right? So it's kind of out to the bay, right?
Right,
so.
Yeah, the water being sucked back in.
All right. So we're going to continue to monitor our views here, and we're going to pivot now to Tallahassee Mayor John Daly. He's going to join us over the phone. In fact, he's going to join us over my phone. So I'm going to put him on speaker here. Little rudimentary, but it gets the job done. So.
Hello?
Mayor Daly, is this you? This is Jacob with WCTV. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jacob. How are you?
Good. We are beaming you right into our viewers' living room right now, if that's okay. We're taking you live. We just wanted a quick update on the situation as you see it from Tallahassee's perspective. Hopefully you've been okay overnight. And yeah, just give us a rundown right now on how things are looking in town.
Sure. I'm down at the Emergency Operations Center right now with our team. And first of all, let me say the men and women that work for the city of Tallahassee are absolutely fantastic in the county, and I appreciate all the hard work they're doing to keep us safe. Look, the storm's hitting us right now. We now know that this has the potential to be the worst hurricane to hit Tallahassee in the history of the city of Tallahassee and the Big Bend. So we have to take this seriously. Shelter in place. Do not go outside. High winds, a lot of rain. And then once the storm passes, we got to give everybody, the professionals, the opportunity to get out, allow first responders to check on those in need, allow our utility crews and stormwater crews to get out and clear the streets and start putting the electricity back on. But yeah, we're feeling the effects right now.
Yeah, and Lenitra Bennett's with me as well, and so she might have a question for you too.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You mentioned the crew members, everyone is ready. What message would you like to give to the residents who, some people may be anxious to get out, but of course, we don't want them to do that, right?
Right. Now's the time to stay in place, shelter in place. Now, I know in Tallahassee, our major concern is when we lose power, how long is it going to take to restore the power? And I want you to know that we've prepared for this. We are actually tripling the size of our electric utility response. Not only do we have the great men and women of the City of Tallahassee Utility Department, but we have mutual aid agreements coming in as far away as Nebraska, Oklahoma, Ohio, Kentucky, Mississippi, Louisiana. Those assets are staged all over our community, and we have a couple of more private contractors coming in as well. As soon as it is safe and the wind speeds die down, they will be out repairing the infrastructure because, like I said earlier, this will be the largest hurricane, it looks like, to hit Tallahassee in the history of the city, and we will sustain damage to the infrastructure, but we're prepared. Stay inside, shelter in place.
Yeah, and I know Michael and Hermine taught valuable lessons for the entire community, right? And that those have been put into place for Idalia. And I know we had gone over some road closures earlier with our viewers in the community. Anything else that has caught your attention over the last couple hours that our viewers need to know, or any final message you have for our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, we're experiencing extreme heavy rain and high winds, and so, we're keeping an eye on the flash flooding situations in low-lying areas, and of course, looking at the infrastructure and road closures and road blockages. Look, again, the best thing that the citizens can do right now, we've prepared for this, just stay home, shelter in place. If you're in a shelter, you're going to be taken great care of. And as the winds die down and we can assess the damage, we will immediately begin repairing Tallahassee.
All right, Mayor. Well, thanks so much for carving out a few minutes for us. I don't always cold call you and put you right on the air, but we do appreciate it this time around. And we'll stay in touch, of course.
Yeah, appreciate your coverage, and thanks for keeping the citizens informed.
All right, take care, Mayor. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, that is Mayor John Daly keeping tabs from a Tallahassee perspective.
Right.
And he did say it could still end up being some of the worst tropical storms
Indeed.
that we've ever seen in the city of Tallahassee in terms of effects. And of course, once all the dust settles, we'll be able to compare Idalia to Michael to Hermine to even Kate back in the 80s. So
Right.
I think we had a shot from Madison County, if that's correct. So yeah, this is Boot Hill, one of the shots we normally take on a normal day at Madison County High School.
That weather stem camera there, just looking, gloomy, of course, but not too bad.
Yeah, there might be some ponding there on the field. It's hard to tell, but the sky's certainly ominous and gray, and I believe that's where we're concerned about what could come with Idalia in Madison County and farther inland.
Exactly. Things are still passing, so we still want everyone to be careful, and we'll go ahead and check in with Rob to see where things stand. We've already had that landfall about an hour ago, but we're still bracing for some effects. Rob, how are things right now?
Yeah, and that video, by the way, was probably looking like it was buffering a little bit. It was kind of behind and slower because the rain's coming down a whole lot more than it appeared to there. And maybe you could see it just in a couple spots if you got real close to the screen. It's serious rain in Madison County now. North of Perry is where that core is still lingering. And I think it's going to be Madison County up towards the state line into parts of Brooks and Lowndes that we're going to be watching at least whatever's left of this core that's still trying to hold together. That's where we're going to find the most significant rain and wind. That back edge is getting more and more pronounced and is trying to move a little bit more east as the storm itself moves to the north and east. And if we zoom in, you can see those darkest colors from around Perry up through Madison and maybe up towards Valdosta, so up into parts of South Georgia now. So that's where the area that we're going to be most concerned with for the next 60 minutes or so as this center continues to make its way there. We go upstairs in the atmosphere onto the water vapor imagery. We're looking for these oranges to indicate some of that drier air maybe trying to get pulled into and help to weaken it even more. But I think here on the radar picture, you'll be able to point out and pick out where some of those most significant rains are. And you can see that they're now north of Perry, maybe just north of Perry, but certainly north of Perry, near Shady Grove, getting up to I-10 around Madison, maybe up to Cherry Lake, not quite into South Georgia yet, but awfully close. And where we've got some of these pockets where we're seeing these reds and purples, that's going to indicate some of that really heavy rain. And maybe that's just north of Dowling Park right now, lifting to the north and to the east. So some really significant rain in that area. And that's where we're seeing this little stripe, a little splotch here of that purple color that's indicating maybe 4 inches worth of rain accumulating, at least by radar's estimation, of just the past 12 hours. A lot of the area in the blue color colors are probably going to be closer to 2 inches already from just the past 12 hours. And we've got a couple hours of rain still to go through. So lots of rain in this mix. Here are the current wind speeds that we see. And in Perry, those current winds from the north and west, 51 miles per hour. That's the sustained wind. That's like the 2 or 3 second average, not a 2 or 3 second burst. So that's the 1 minute average, not a 2 or 3 second burst. So 51 miles per hour sustained is serious wind. And we're going to see more of that try to work its way into parts of Madison County and maybe even into parts of Brooks and Lowndes County, especially southern parts of Brooks and Lowndes. Hopefully the storm itself will continue weakening while most of the area, it's in that 15 to 25 mile per hour range. We've had some days behind a cold front where we have breezes this strong. But when you are in those areas nearest to that core, it is much more significant and much more dangerous. And take a look at this. Some of the gusts over the past few hours, if we get into Perry here, we see those gusts that got up over 60, up over 70 to 85 miles per hour. At Lafayette High School, a gust that got to 67 miles per hour. Now, those are those 2 or 3 second bursts. So, yeah, some really significant things there. That is the one that's going to cause danger. That is the one that's going to cause power outages. Those are the kind of gusts that are going to knock tree limbs down. Even in Tallahassee, a 44 mile per hour wind gust. So that's going to cause some problems in many spots. In Thomasville, a 32 mile per hour gust. Already a 40 mile per hour gust in Valdosta. So there's certainly been some strong gusts. And the most recent ones in Valdosta are up to 45 miles per hour. So windy for sure, gusting winds absolutely, and that is what's going to cause more issues in addition to the rain that we're going to continue to see. Here's the radar picture one more time. This significant stripe from Moultrie through Thomasville to Tallahassee to Crawfordville, the whole Highway 319 corridor with moderate to heavy rains. Get into Madison County, northern Taylor County, between Perry and the city of Madison up to I-10. That's where the extreme rain is now. And as this continues to lift to the north and to the northeast, it's going to bring those batches of heavy rain. It's going to bring those instances of the most dangerous and strongest winds with it. And I think those areas next are going to be up to Highway 84 near the I-75 corridor into parts of Brooks and Lowndes counties. So that's what we'll be watching for that. We'll see if those extreme wind warnings continue to get extended. They're now into parts of Madison. They're now into parts of Lafayette and Suwannee. That's set to go till 11:15 this morning. And then, of course, one of the first areas that I've seen some flood warnings, and that's going to be right through parts of Wakulla into Leon County, and that's going to go till the afternoon. So some flooding already beginning, and that does line up with where we've got that stripe of the heaviest rains in southern Leon County, northern Wakulla County, down towards St. Marks, so near the St. Marks River. So that's where we have some of those flooding concerns. And we certainly do see those batches of rain north of Perry. That's going to continue moving to the north as the core of the storm itself continues to move more to the north. And that's where we're going to find those heaviest rains. So, yeah, it's going to be areas in Madison County, and it's going to get across the state line into spots of Brooks and Lowndes counties. Now, here's what it looks like kind of on a bigger perspective. And the expanse of the entire system, it does go from Liberty County all the way over towards I-75. So covering a large area. But, man, that core stayed really, really small, and it kept those strongest winds in just that smallest area. So that was one of the better things that could have happened with this system. Instead of seeing that core really expand and get deeper and stronger, to really spread out those most dangerous winds and the most of the serious rain. But you can also see so much rain spiraling through many areas. And I do think as we get through the next couple of hours, those rains will start to taper off to showers and then taper off from the showers to next to nothing. And then we'll have some wraparound moisture lingering, I think, later on. Well, back to the west, the air is much drier, and we'd like to see some of that take over the next couple of days. And I think it's a real possibility. So there's some better and brighter news coming. We just got to make it through these next couple of hours first for many of our Florida areas, and maybe got to get just past lunchtime in some of our South Georgia areas before we can start to wave goodbye to the bulk of all this. And then it's going to be about the aftermath. All right, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. I don't think I have 9 o'clock information just yet, so we're still going with the 8 o'clock stuff. The air pressure at 950 millibars, up from a low back in the 940s, and then we can see the winds still around that core. Still coming in as of 8 o'clock at Category 3 at 120 miles per hour. I suspect that's going to come down a little bit more when we get the 9 o'clock info. And then as we go to 9 to 10 to 11 and we get that next full advisory, hopefully we'll see a real big drop in all of that as the storm itself should really kind of continue racing off to the north and east and getting out of our area. But it's going to be a couple of more hours still. You can see the size of it, and there's plenty of wind and rain that still has to make its way through our area, lifting from south and west to north and east. And of course, course, that surge is still going to be a real thing now as the backside of those winds wraps around and helps to push that wind up against the Taylor and Dixie County coast, while maybe the winds and take the water down from Franklin and Wakulla County's coast, but it's really going to start piling it up on the Taylor and the Dixie County coast. So that's where those storm surges up over 10 feet are going to be. We've had some of those cameras where we saw some of the water in some of those marina areas that are way up the sides of those buildings and up over the sides of those vehicles that were out there. That's a lot of water, and that's what's going to continue to be one of the major storylines in those areas, in addition to the wind and the rain. And even when the wind and the rain start to calm down, it takes a while for those waters to recede again, especially considering that the high tides are the next round of tides later on this afternoon, this evening. So we'll be watching for all of that as we go through the day today. But the next story right now is a couple more hours of this wind and this rain, guys.
Thank you so much, Rob, for that latest information. And yeah, every minute, every hour is so important now, as one community after the next is in the line of fire. Some of the strongest winds with Idalia. So very important. We wanted to show you several different views here. This is a live, or not a live look, of course, but this is a video recording from outside our studio back before sunrise. You can see in Tallahassee bands of rain and wind, kind of what you would expect to see with a tropical storm.
And that must have been taken during one of the downsides, because, man, I tell you, there were moments where it sounded much louder than that just sitting inside here in the studio. But right now, this is a video from Perry, the traffic camera there.
Yeah.
Ooh, and you can see those strong winds. Well, speaking of our lights
Lights
just
are flashing
flashed.
here in the studio.
So
Not
yeah, that video
surprising,
we
right?
just saw was nothing compared to what's been happening. But yeah, again, Perry right there, and
Yeah, that was
Taylor County. They already knew that it was going to be a lot of action in that area.
Yeah.
Ooh, the lightning.
Lightning.
Oh man.
Yeah, and that was about 30 minutes ago on US 19 and 98 in Perry. And then, of course, along the coast, Lenitra.
Oh yeah, we've been talking about that coast most definitely. This is towards Taylor County's coast. The streets in Steinhatchee submerged in water. That's a look there, the conditions, and of course, we'll continue to monitor that area. But we've been looking out there over the several hours, and it's just amazing to see how the water, it seems to have been getting higher and higher and higher. That particular house right there, boy, when we first saw it a few hours ago, the water wasn't that high.
Water wasn't that high, and there was
Yeah,
still
look
a
at it
truck,
now.
I believe, that was just parked on the road there.
Oh.
And so who knows if that truck that's
Right.
underwater has been swept away. It's so hard to tell. And as I had mentioned earlier, that's a river. That's not an oceanside town. Steinhatchee is a river town, but that just puts it into context.
Yeah, and taking a look now, this is Crawfordville, just the rainfall there. You can hear that sound. It doesn't seem too bad as far as the winds are
yeah.
concerned. And no bad winds right now, at least not in that spot, because we have seen a lot of wind blowing and with that rain happening there. But Crawfordville doesn't look too bad.
No, it doesn't look too bad, and that's the thing about tropical systems, right? You can take one moment in time where it's a lull or it's not, it doesn't seem so bad, and then the next thing you know, it does get way more intense. Or it's one community just has a nice morning rain, and the other community, like Taylor County, dealing with some intense stuff. This is a live view now of a weather stem camera down at St. Mark's, which we've been viewing.
Oh yeah, and as you can see, a different story with that wind. Look at those trees right there.
Yeah.
Man, it is blowing. The rain has been coming down in that area. So, but no matter where you are and what it looks like at the moment, even if it seems calm, they are asking everyone to please stay inside.
Stay inside.
To be safe, because it may be that moment. It may be calm right then, and then the next thing you know, no
Right.
telling what can happen, because we are monitoring a lot right now.
Absolutely. And this another example of that reverse storm surge that our weather teams talked about, where the wind is pushing the water into the bay and not towards land. So, and we've seen that before on this shot for prior storms too. So a fascinating phenomenon. Of course, we're following a lot of things, and we're going to keep a close eye on Madison County for live pictures out of Madison, because they're under the gun right now. And Josh can rejoin us now and give us
9 o'clock update.
9 o'clock update and a lot of really important information, Josh.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, I've got some more good news as we continue down the line. We have seen more weakening. We are no longer at a Category 3 hurricane. We are now at a Category 2. This is going the trend that we're going to continue to see because Idalia is now on land. With these tropical systems, they need warm water. That's their fuel. That's what drives them. It's like gas. It's like gas for a car. If it doesn't have the gas, it can't run. So it's going to continue to weaken. So we've seen it get downgraded again. Sustained winds right now at 110 miles per hour. So yes, this is still a strong hurricane. This is still something that we are tracking very, very closely as it continues across our now eastern third of our viewing area. So we'll go ahead and play out this forecast cone. It's continuing to move towards the north-northeast at a pretty quick clip, 18 miles per hour. And it's still forecast to be a Category 2 storm by the time it crosses over the state line and it crosses over spots like Lowndes, like Eccles, Lanier, and Clinch counties before it then exits our area by the time we get to later on this afternoon. Then we get to this evening, and it's all gone. It's going to make its way across the Carolinas. It's going to be a problem there, but then by the time we get to Thursday, it's then going to exit and make its way out into the open Atlantic. Now, we've still got these extreme wind warnings in effect. These ones down by the coast are set to expire at 9:15, so we've only got about another 10 to 15 minutes. I think the worst is now past the coast. Perry and Mayo, you guys just pretty much saw the worst of that the center of rotation where the strongest winds were. Now we're getting into spots like Madison and Live Oak that are starting to see some real gusty winds out there. So once again, if you're in Madison, if you're in Suwannee County, especially the northern half of it, you need to be inside. Lowest level of your home, away from windows. We've seen some very high wind reports with Idalia as it's continuing to move across our area. It looks like we have a new flash flood warning that popped up. That includes Perry and Greenville and Madison as well. And that's because this little section of that the northwestern quadrant of where we're seeing the center of circulation, there's a whole lot of rain. That is very, very heavy rain. Also some lightning here passing on through just to the north of I-10 now throughout Madison County. That's pretty much where we're seeing the strongest winds. So it's now approaching the state line, but it's not there yet. Madison County, pretty much in the worst of it. Perry, the worst of it is now moving towards your north, but we've still got some decent winds that are flowing towards the bay right now, still probably causing some storm surge problems near Steinhatchee and the rest of the Taylor County coastline down into Dixie County as well. In terms of rain across the rest of our area, yeah, we've still got some good downpours stretching all the way from Valdosta, Moultrie down through Thomasville and Cairo, even Leon County still seeing some of those heavy downpours, and Wakulla County as well as some of those start to make their way offshore again. We've still got a good amount of rain left to go. That's a zoomed in look, and once again I've circled here. This is definitely the most dangerous section right now in terms of the winds. They're the most powerful around that center of circulation, but once again it's starting to weaken, and that's good news. We've still got that tornado watch out, so we're watching out for some of these feeder bands that come in off the south. Some of them have a history of gaining rotation. We've seen that down on the west coast of Florida. I've seen some in southeast Georgia today. I haven't seen any across our area that show any signs of doing that for now, but that could change, and if it does, we'll be right here to tell you when that happens. These are our wind velocities. It gives us a good idea of the winds going away from the radar and coming towards the radar. Where we see these bright splotches, that's when the winds are the heaviest. So right now in Perry, the 100% still need to be inside. All right, even though that center of circulation is starting to move a little bit to the north, we're still seeing some very damaging wind gusts throughout Taylor County. Of course, I think the worst of it right now is this little patch that's moving throughout Madison County. That's why we have that excessive wind warning in effect right now. That's why we're sheltered in place inside of our homes, lowest level, away from windows until the worst of this wind moves away from our area. Once again, we talked a little bit about that storm surge. We're still seeing that counterclockwise rotation bringing some pretty powerful winds into the Taylor County coastline, into the Dixie County coastline. That's not going to help improve storm surge conditions anytime soon. On the flip side of things, you've got winds that are moving from the land towards the bay on the other side of the bend. And what that does, it sucks the water out. And we've seen that happen across our area many times before. Here's some of the winds that we're dealing with right now. In terms of the heaviest ones, still in Perry, 58 miles per hour sustained winds. That is powerful. 30 miles per hour in Tallahassee. That's some of the highest sustained winds that I've seen in the capital city today. 26 in Valdosta. That probably explained why our power started flashing a little bit there. 20 miles sustained in Bainbridge, 22 in Moultrie, 18 right now in Apalachicola. Here's some of our wind gusts. All right, check this out. Perry coming out with a wind gust of 85 miles per hour. That's one of the highest ones that we've seen today. That's that little burst of wind that I showed you on the velocities. So if you're in Perry, you are not at all in the clear. Recent recording of an 85 mile per hour wind gust, you still need to be inside, still need to be sheltered in place until the worst of it passes on through, and it is not done yet at all. Some of the other wind gusts across our area, Tallahassee up to 46. Valdosta starting to climb as that center of circulation gets closer to you. Lowndes County, 52 miles per hour at Valdosta. Live Oak still not coming in, but I know those wind gusts are going to be very high there and very, very high in Madison County as well. We just don't have a sensor there right now. 28 miles per hour in Bainbridge, 31 miles per hour in Quincy. Let's go ahead and time this out. Where are the worst winds going to be and when are they going to be gone? Well, right now, they're right here. Look at Live Oak popping up. They could be seeing some wind gusts close to 90 miles per hour right now. All right, that center of circulation is right here, and all around it is some very, very, very damaging wind gusts. Over the next couple hours, it's going to continue to progress into our south central Georgia counties. That's where the wind threat will be the highest around, say, 11, 12 o'clock. Then, by the time we get to a little bit later on this afternoon, that center of circulation moves off to the north and to the east. Our sustained winds, our wind gusts are still pretty bad out there, but they're not too bad. I think by the time we get to this evening, everyone's good to go. You can go outside, check things out, see what needs to be done. We've still got that flood watch in effect. We're seeing a lot of rain across our area, rain that is just relentless. It hasn't stopped. Here's some of our accumulation totals over the past 12 hours. You can see some spots getting well over 4 inches now in Madison County, where we're seeing that big, big burst of rain, thunderstorms, and very damaging wind gusts. Other than that, a lot of spots now up to 2 to 3 inches combined. It starts to get a little bit less once you get west of Tallahassee and once you get east of, say, Live Oak. But hey, Clinch County, not a lot of rain yet. You've got a lot on your way. That center of circulation looks to be passing right through Clinch County by the time we get to later on this morning into early this afternoon. Let's look at the futurecast for the rest of today. Here's that center of circulation. It's picking up pretty good right now, and the rain bands are also supportive of what's going on. So we'll continue to play that out. I think most of that convection and that rain is going to start to lift to the north by the time we get to the lunch hour. So that's when we could start to see some breaks in the action, at least in the Big Bend. I think there's still going to be some rain left to go in South Georgia. The further west that you are, that's when you'll see the rain stop the soonest. But we've still got a good amount of it to go, especially in South Central Georgia, until we get to later on this afternoon. Then the main piece of energy leaves us, Idalia. But then behind it, we've still got some of these feeder bands on the backside. That's going to leave us with some isolated showers and storms, something to keep in mind before we head out later on today and even this evening to start some recovery efforts. Here's one more check of that current satellite and radar loop. This is the most dangerous part of the storm right now. Made landfall around Keaton Beach, 7:45 a.m. this morning as a Category 3 hurricane. It is now downgraded to a Category 2, but is still packing some very damaging wind gusts as it heads towards that Florida-Georgia state line. We're going to continue to monitor this closely, guys, but for now, we'll send it back to Jacob and Lenitra.
All right, thanks so much, Josh. Still got that new information coming in.
Yeah.
Another downgrade to a Category 2. But as he mentioned, it's still a strong storm.
Yeah, we are not done yet. We have to wait for it to move through our entire viewing area. And of course, South Georgia will be next in line to feel some of those strong winds, if not already. So a lot of new information we're getting into our newsroom, and we're going to do our best to share some new information to you. And I just wanted to pass along some notes that we just got in from the Madison County Sheriff's Office. They say it's no longer safe for first responders to be out on the roads, trees, and power lines. lines are coming down in Madison County, and they even say that trees are falling on moving vehicles on the interstate,
Wow.
presumably I-10, of course. So
Right.
that's not what you want to hear.
Exactly.
We told people hours ago that I-10 was not your friend, that you should not be on it, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's not good. We don't know any injury situation or blockage. I believe we had seen in Jefferson County,
Yeah.
I-10 had been shut down earlier
Right.
today.
Yeah,
so.
there were some parts shut down, so they're asking stay off the roads. As you see, if they're saying it's not safe for first responders to be out there, that means it's not safe for you to be out there. So if you can, please stay off the roads because they aren't able to come and help.
Yeah.
Not at that time. They have to wait until conditions improve for that. We're going to get another update, though, from the shelter that's open at Lincoln High School in Leon County.
Yeah, I believe, I'm not sure if we have them live or if we're just passing along this note. Yeah, this is just some info we want to let you know. Apparently, the lights went out at Lincoln High School, the shelter there, and the generator didn't quite kick in. It failed, so they're in the dark right now. The 50 or 100 so people at Lincoln. So not the best news, but of course, the volunteers, the school staff members, everyone's working around the clock to try to make sure things like this, if it does happen, that we get a rebound quickly.
Right. Yeah, and right now we're seeing the power outages in Tallahassee right now at 22,564. So we know that number has been climbing over the morning, which was expected, but we did talk to Mayor John Daly just a little while ago, who said they are working on it. And of course, not only do they have great men and women with the city of Tallahassee working with the utilities company, but as well as help from other states, even as far away as Nebraska.
Right.
So they are ready and they're out there working and trying to get it done.
Very impressed to see the coast-to-coast outpouring of support, and whether it's Tallahassee or if it's areas to the east with all those power outages, yeah, they'll be put to good use for sure.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully everyone's okay out there. Just kind of stick it out, and those with the power outages, hopefully they can get those back up as soon as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we'll do one more reminder for those Xfinity hotspots. They are free and available to non-Xfinity customers. So you can see all those different spots across the Big Bend and in South Georgia, too. Should point that out. And so those you might see normally on your phone as available for Xfinity customers. Well, these are for everybody right now. It's a service that Xfinity is providing. That website is finder.wifi.xfinity.com to find the one closest to you.
Right, and it is free, so that is good. Being able to being in those areas with the hotspots allow people to communicate and connect and let folks know what's going on.
Yeah, and as this storm progresses county to county to county, it's good to have your own county's alerts on. And again, we're approaching the point where it's too late for this storm, but it's still worth doing. We have a link on our website that shows all the different counties in our viewing area and the link to access the alert page for each county.
Right, just go to WCTV.tv. We have the Florida and Georgia counties there. We're scrolling through just so you'll see what it looks like, and we can click on one of those and it'll let you know information that is important. There's Taylor County right there, so you can sign in and get the information you need.
Yeah, so helpful tips perhaps for the future or the present, because again, we are not out of the woods yet. And we saw at the governor's press conference a couple hours ago that it was the Coast Guard, the National Guard. There's so many different groups of people, an army literally is basically ready to go into where the hardest hit areas are. And so it's just going to be really impressive to see that come to life.
Right.
Heartbreaking, of course,
Yes,
given what's going on, but it'll warm your heart for sure as well when you see that happen.
Just to see everybody coming together. As you mentioned, the Coast Guard is one of the entities that is out helping, and there you go. This is video of the Coast Guard there. I believe we're in Central Florida, maybe.
Tampa.
St. Pete, Tampa, looking good there. Oh, that's the video of yesterday, as the Coast Guard moved to respond with their vessels there to the south. So that's good.
Yeah, a lot of equipment needed, and I'm sure they're already in action. The effects of Idalia in Tampa kind of come and gone at this point. I believe there's still some effects as well. So we're going to continue to follow updates. We did want to go back to that really impressive shot out of Perry, frightening shot, really.
Yeah.
The traffic camera. Do we have that? We can pull up. Let's see if we have that available to us. It's just bands of rain. Okay, so this
There we go.
This is the view live from Perry, and you can see still lots of rain and what appears to be debris, a fallen road sign there on the side.
Right, and that's what makes it scary, you know, having that debris out there. First of all, you never know when things could fall, and then after they fall, you have all types of debris and everything on the ground, and so another reason why they're asking people to stay off the road, because not only are you dealing with the wet roads, but you have to deal with that debris that could be scattered in different places as well.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on the cameras, and we'll send it over to Rob as we continue to keep a close eye on where this thing heads.
Yeah, and those cameras were rocking and rolling, right? You
Oh,
saw
yeah.
moving around, those street lights were too, so really dangerous stuff. Not the time to be on the roads anywhere in the area. Give it another couple hours, let things quiet down. You made it this far, you can make it another couple of hours without getting into trouble by going out on those roads right now with all the dangers that are out there. Now, the 9 o'clock information does continue the steady weakening of the system. The internal pressure up to 957 millibars. The wind speed's down to 110 miles per hour, so we're back down to a Category 2 storm. And this weakening should continue as it moves more to the north of east or east of north and continues to work its way out towards the Carolina coast. And now when it gets out into the Atlantic, we'll see about what's going on there. We've got plenty of time to watch it after it gets away from our area. That back edge is starting to become even more pronounced, even farther to the east. So that's good news from our far western areas. But we still got a lot to deal with in some of our eastern sections. And right now, we see those darkest colors, and that now is going to include most of Jefferson County and into quite a bit of Brooks and Lowndes County and over into parts of Eccles and Hamilton counties, in addition to Madison and Taylor. Those are all the areas that are going to be dealing with some of those strongest rains and some of those heaviest winds. And you can certainly see it all right here on the tropical radar picture. Now, it's hard to find that center, but you can still see that circulation core sort of spinning, maybe just a little bit north of Mayo, just a little bit south of Madison. So that's about where that center is. Now, as it lifts its way north, it's going to take this little splotch of most significant rains with it. So things are probably about as bad as they've been in Madison up to about Cherry Lake and maybe back over a little bit towards Greenville. But this will continue moving off to the north and east, and hopefully fast enough to get it out of Madison County. Of course, that means it's going to find its way into the I-75 corridor and maybe up near Statenville or back down towards Jasper. We're already seeing a stripe of more significant rains coming down. So there is still plenty with this storm. Even if we're saying that it's weakening, doesn't mean it's done. It just means it's not as strong as it was a couple hours ago. We see that area in Madison County with all the purple shading on the rainfall accumulation over the last 12 hours. It's up upwards of 4 inches worth of rain, and when all is said and done, I think we're going to find more of those purple splotches. A lot of our area in those blues, and that's going to be in the 2 to 3 inch range. So we're still going to be dealing with more rain for another couple hours to just pad those rainfall totals. Looking at the current wind speeds, these are the sustained winds. These are these 1-minute averages, not those 2 or 3 second bursts. That's the gusts. And we're seeing those winds in Valdosta, 39 miles per hour, in Perry, 43. That's actually down in Perry from where it was a little while ago. And most of the area is in that 15 to 30 mile per hour range. So that is certainly windy enough out there. Now let's check on some of those gusts, which we're going to see in some areas, like especially around Perry, that got up at one point up to 85 miles per hour. In Valdosta, up to 52 miles per hour. In Tallahassee, wind gusts up to 46 miles per hour. So those are all really dangerous wind gusts, and those are all the kinds that give you the scary out there with this system. Now, if we take a look at the radar picture again, we're going to find significant rains falling still in several areas. We're still watching that same batch of rain from Moultrie all the way down to almost Crawfordville. The biggest rains are right around Madison currently. We still have the extreme wind warning. That's going to go for a little while longer till after 11 o'clock. That is for parts of Taylor and Madison, parts of Dixie and Lafayette and even some Suwannee County. Now, if we zoom in here, we're going to find a couple of green shaded areas, or at least green outlined areas. One for southern Leon into northern Wakulla, and more through parts of Madison and Taylor County. And these are for some flash flood warnings because of all the rain coming down in short periods of time. There was no place for that water to go. So these flash floodings are really, really dangerous things, and we'll certainly be watching for that. And we'll continue to watch out for the possibility of spin-up tornadoes, especially from Taylor County, Madison County, Lowndes County, and east, where the current tornado watch still extends. Now, we're taking a look at the radar picture one more time, and we'll see in a couple of zooms where we've got those more significant bands of rain right around Madison and I-10 back to Jefferson County. Get up north of Highway 84, not necessarily as strong, but that's the direction this rain is moving, so it's going to get stronger here before it calms down. Now, a little further back along Highway 319 from Moultrie to Thomasville, I don't expect the strongest rains or heaviest winds to make it there, but we're still dealing with quite a bit, and a lot of that's going to wrap around that core. And then through parts of Leon County, especially eastern parts of Leon County and north of I-10, we still have a bunch of significant rain coming down, and it's going to continue to do that until that core pulls away a little bit more, and then more rain will still wrap around that system, so we're not going to be finished with those bands of rain until probably closer to lunchtime or even after. So for the next couple of hours, it's still about the rain coming down with the storm lifting to the north and east. We'd like it to lift north and east faster and farther and get out of here, and it's going to do it. It's moving fairly quickly, but it's still going to take a little while. So that means we still need to stay in place. Don't be out on the roads. Don't be in a hurry to get out there and investigate the damage. We love to see the pictures and the video you send us, but don't go out there if it's not safe to get it. That's only putting yourself at risk, and we'd rather not see the video. We'd rather you be safe. So just be careful if you're thinking about doing something like that. Now, as far as the wider view goes, the storm itself, not super expansive. It doesn't encompass 3 states all at once. It's not a monster system, but it certainly is a wind and rain producer, and as it lifts its way to the north and east, it's going to bring more wind and rain to more areas in Georgia, and then eventually into the Carolinas, and then eventually out into the Atlantic. Behind it, the air is a little bit drier. So we're hoping to bring some of that in and maybe a little bit cooler. We'll see how that goes over the next couple of days. It'll be a little while before we get the next update. It's only 9:22. We won't get the next one until 10 o'clock. So we'll have to watch and still hang on to this data for the next little while. And that's still going to call it a Category 2 storm, at least for a little bit longer. But it really is encouraging to see as much weakening as we've been seeing for the past little while. And that should continue for the next little while. I mean, it's almost impossible now to pick out where that eye used to be. We can see that center of circulation where all the winds are rotating around and where all the rains are rotating around. And that's what's really close to Madison right now. And that's why some of the most significant rains are falling near Madison. And I think they're going to continue to fall in those areas and start spreading up towards Valdosta over the next little while. So if you're wondering where it's going next or when it's going to be worse next, it's going to be in areas probably north of I-10 up to Highway 84 and over to I-75 from the city of Madison, maybe up towards Quitman and Valdosta. That seems to be the general motion this is going. Over the last hour or so, it does look like maybe it's a little bit more north than east, and maybe you can see that with that very end of this loop here, it kind of turns a little bit more north. So I think that's going to put more of Brooks and Lowndes County in play for the next hour or two. And then once we get past that, hopefully we start waving goodbye to the whole system in its entirety. And by the time we get past lunchtime into the afternoon hours, now we're talking about just some of the leftover wraparound bands. That'll still bring with it some showers, but hopefully nothing like what we're dealing with currently, especially not like what we're dealing currently around Madison and back over towards Greenville and up towards Cherry Lake. And I do see this pretty impressive little stripe of red here that's along the I-75 corridor south of Valdosta. Not quite as far east as Statenville, but it does include Jasper right now. So there are certainly some areas that are getting some serious rain and wind out there. And with the rainfall accumulations already in the 2 to 4 inch or 2 to 5 inch range, we are going to find more flooding concerns. We've got some flash flood problems in a couple of spots, and I think that's going to continue. Now, as far as those winds go, everyone wants to know how strong those winds are going to be. For the most part, those winds are in that 15 to 30 mile per hour range, and that is really strong and it's scary. But then we've got some spots like still in Perry, like now in Valdosta. It's closer to or up over 40 miles per hour, and it's going to get a little bit stronger, I think, as we head up into South Georgia from Quitman to Valdosta, where that core is headed. That's where the strongest winds will be, close to that core, which is still intact. Maybe not as impressive looking as it was a couple hours ago offshore, but it's still there, and it still can bring some serious wind with it. And it's amazing that we've seen some of the gusts that we've seen far away from where that core is. I mean, yeah, Perry jumps out the screen with that 85 mile per hour wind gust, but in Tallahassee, a 46 mile per hour wind gust is no joke, and that's nowhere near the core or that eastern side where we usually expect to find those biggest ones. And yeah, up in Valdosta, we've got some of those wind gusts right here at 52 miles per hour. So that's a real dangerous 2-second burst of wind, and there likely will be more of those. Now, the most recent one at a 59 mile per hour wind gust. So I think we're going to continue to deal with these at least for another couple of hours. It's probably not until after lunchtime that these rains and these winds start to subside more and more. Those rains will start tapering off to showers at some point from west to east. Hopefully it starts sooner, not later. It's been encouraging that our far western areas are getting little bits of breaks and less of the activity. But some of our eastern sections are going to be in for it for another couple of hours still. That's why we still have the excessive wind warning, and that's for mostly Taylor, Dixie, Lafayette, Suwannee, and Madison counties. And then, of course, we've got these areas where there's already the flash flood concerns, and likely there will be more flash flood concerns, especially as we start to pile on more rain in some of those areas where the rain's coming down the heaviest. And I think that means from Madison up towards Valdosta, might get as far east as Statenville, might be as far back to the west as Quitman. So that seems to be the area where we have the most potential for the most rain in the next few hours. But it's been very impressive to see some of these wraparound showers that are spiraling around that center, continuing to be fairly impressive from as far west as Cairo, back through Thomasville, up towards Moultrie, and then back down through Tallahassee. Now, southwestern parts of Leon County, not nearly as wet as northeastern parts of Leon County, and then get back to Gadsden, and we're still getting wet, but not like we're seeing in other areas. I see a pretty good stripe of showers around Bainbridge and north up towards Camilla, and as that works its way south, maybe it does spiral through more parts of Gadsden County and more parts of western Leon, and eventually down through parts of Wakulla. And some of this rain that's to the south, it also will spiral around and move through more of Taylor and Dixie and Lafayette and Suwannee. So just because the core has moved past where you are doesn't mean the rains are done. It's all symmetrical and it all rotates around that core. So it's going to be more rain in more spots for quite a while still, and that's what we're going to have to contend with. Maybe not as significant as the rains that we're currently seeing around Madison. Boy, it's got to be nasty out there in Madison right now, and that's going to be the area right now closest to that core. And as that core lifts more to the north, I do think it's going to be heading up towards Lowndes County, maybe towards Valdosta, and towards the I-75 corridor. Now, you get north of Highway 84, and the rains are significant, but maybe not as much as they are near the I-10 corridor. And from Cairo to Thomasville to Quitman to Valdosta, it's been raining pretty serious for the last little while, and it's going to rain pretty serious for a little while still to go. So we've got time to watch those showers move through the area. And even in some of our western spots where those showers are tapering off, we're not completely finished just yet. It has been encouraging that once you get past Apalachicola, past Cape San Blas, past Mexico Beach, over towards Panama City, there's not a lot of rain coming down at all, if any, and the winds are much lighter than they are in those other areas. The bigger picture here is going to show that it really does look like once we get up towards Madison, it does make that little bit of a turn more north than northeast, and that may adjust at least a little bit where we expect things to go for the next couple of hours. But of course, as we're working our way through the 9 o'clock hour towards the 10 o'clock hour, there will still be significant rains falling in many areas, and those rains are going to continue to push more to the north. So maybe you haven't seen some of the heavy rains just yet in South Georgia. It's coming that way, and I think these heavy rains are going to continue for parts of South Georgia as we work our way into the afternoon hours. Now, for the afternoon, for most of the area, that's when those rains taper off to showers and the showers taper off to just clouds. But I do still think there's plenty of activity out there for much of the area, probably until at least noontime. So we've got about another couple of hours before things hopefully start to quiet down for the bulk of the area. And then we can start to focus on the aftermath and the cleanup. Now is not the time for that. Now is the time to let it do its course, let it move through the area, let it be done with us. But we've got a couple hours still. We have to contend with that. And eventually, in a couple of hours, we should be able to start assessing the damage and start putting things back together. And that's probably going to be a lengthy process over the next couple of days. Now, one of the things that I'm encouraged about, maybe we do get to pull in some of that drier air to the north and west, and maybe that can actually bring in slightly cooler air. Some of the computers hinting at temperatures in the 60s for overnight lows this weekend. Wouldn't that feel nice as we head to Labor Day? Wouldn't that be a nice treat after all the hot and humid we've been dealing with? I'm still working on putting that forecast together for the next couple of days. I'm hoping to have it done soon, but I keep coming on here to talk about what's going on, where we're getting the biggest rain. Let me send it back to the news desk now. I'll still continue to work on that extended part of the forecast. I do have some, I think, encouraging news as we head towards the weekend, and that's great news with the holiday weekend coming. But for today, especially for the next couple of hours, lots of rain and significant wind we still have to get through, guys.
Yeah, that extended forecast, as you said, and we'll take a peek at it, it could be encouraging for several reasons. You know, folks who are in cleanup mode and need to be out need good weather to start that cleanup process.
Indeed. I'm sure they are anxious to get out there, you know, even though we're saying don't rush out there now because things are still happening. So be careful. But, you know, once things clear up, it is encouraging to know that once we get through today, then things will be a little better so that you can get out there and start that cleanup and recovery process.
Yeah, and we're getting some important updates in from Taylor County. We just spoke to their public information officer a little while ago, and they said just before the hurricane made landfall, which was 7:45 this morning, they actually had to move their location of their emergency operations center from their normal facility to the airport in Perry. The person who we spoke to said that the winds were forcing the county, in addition to also suspending all emergency services, which is no surprise since we've seen that from a lot of counties in our viewing area. But yeah, the EOC wasn't safe enough to deal with the conditions that they were experiencing, so they had to relocate.
Right.
And then that was the headquarters of their emergency
So
operations.
that obviously sounds like some pretty serious stuff there, that when even the emergency management operations had to relocate. So again, if they're keeping their people off the roads and saying that it's too, scary in some areas to be out there, then again, for the regular people, please stay off the roads if possible.
Absolutely.
You know, and as Rob was just saying, we still have to get through a lot of rain and a lot of wind right now.
All right, let's take a live look at Steenhatchee. And it's been an adventure watching this camera all morning long. And it still looks pretty significant in terms of that storm surge. Again, this river looks more like a lake right now.
It really does. You know, that water has just been rising all morning. The camera there now, of course, is covered with the water from that rain coming down. Earlier when we had the shot at a different angle, there was a house out there.
Yeah.
And we saw the water go from below the house to almost covering it.
Right.
So real serious stuff.
That really puts it into context, because as we mentioned earlier, those docks there at the marina, it appears they float with the water. So it's harder to see that it's just so high. But I'm thinking back to 2 days ago looking at this shot. The docks were much farther down from where this camera is on the roof of the building. So.
Yeah, that's good to point out, because at first looking at them, it's like, oh, the docks aren't even covered with water. How could the water be rising? But because of the floating docks, as the water rises, the docks rise too. So you can't really tell how high it is till you look at that house we saw.
You're right, but it'll be interesting to see exactly what that storm surge figure ends up being in Steenhatchee and Keaton Beach, where the landfall was. And on the reverse side, let's go ahead and show you St. Mark's.
Right, another view that we've been checking in on over the past several hours this morning. And boy, that wind just really has been kicking it there in St. Mark's. Just looking at the tree, you can tell how strong the winds are and that water. And and we were talking about, what was that, reverse
storm surge?
Yeah, reverse storm surge.
So the water is thankfully not coming inland, but it's going back out in the bay. But things can change on a dime with tropical systems. So that's the view in Wakulla. And what we're doing is we're having our folks in the back kind of pull up different cameras as we talk through them. So we just wanted to give you kind of a survey view of the world we live in as of this moment, and show you kind of different tastes. And so this is in Franklin County we have now.
Taking a look at the Coastal Marine Lab. Wow, now those the sky looks much darker right there.
It does, but I don't see a lot of rain. It could be actually, I mean, there's rain on the lens, but maybe it's finally letting up there in Franklin, because we definitely saw a lot of rain earlier at the Coastal and Marine Lab. But that could be good news if some of our coastal areas are no longer seeing rain. So just a taste, and again, I think the communities were most concerned, right?
Yes.
Perry, Mayo, even Madison
Right.
County, and soon that'll be Valdosta too.
Yeah, so all of those coastal communities that had the mandatory evacuations, and some areas may have been voluntary, but of course that is why they wanted people to get out of there, because all of that rain so far. We're going to go ahead and check in with Josh, and he can go ahead and give us the latest on where things stand with the storm.
Yeah, Lenitra, the good news, at least, is that we've continued to see this storm be downgraded. It is now a Category 2 storm. It made landfall as a Category 3. Now it's starting to weaken since it's made its way on land. It doesn't have that fuel to keep increasing its intensity anymore. It's actually going to be decreasing in intensity over the next 24 to 48 hours. But it's still a powerful Category 2 storm. It's moving towards the north-northeast at around 18 miles per hour. The pressure continues to go up now. Throughout the morning, it was going down as it was intensifying. Now, as it starts to get weaker, that pressure starts to level back out. Here's where it's situated right now, pretty much right over southeastern reaches of the Big Bend. It's going to continue to make its way across some of our south central Georgia counties. We're talking about Lowndes, Clinch, Eccles, Lanier. It's on your way. Now it's going to start to make its way out of our area by the time we get to by the middle of this afternoon. So by then, a lot of us are going to start to see some more improved conditions, especially the further south and the further west that you are. The further north and the further east that you are, it's going to be still a while till we start to see any improved conditions, and that's the last thing that we're seeing right now. We're still seeing very, very powerful winds. We just saw some outside the studio here in Tallahassee, so the worst of it is nowhere near gone. Here's some of the current extreme wind warnings. Once again, we don't have that one down by the coast anymore. We still have one for portions of Taylor, Lafayette counties. That includes Perry and Mayo, up through Madison County, including Madison, and Suwannee County, including Live Oak. It looks like we have a little bit of an extension down into Dixie County, including Cross City. What does this mean? If you're in this area, it means do not go outside. You need to be inside your home. You need to be pretending like there is a tornado outside. That's how we like to handle these extreme wind warnings. Staying inside, staying on the lowest level of your home, away from any windows. I know it's been a while. We're all kind of antsy, but we just got to stay inside. We got to ride this out. It's not over yet, especially in those counties with that extreme wind warning. Here's Idalia right now on the radar loop. Yeah, it is still powerful out there. This is the center of rotation. It is very broad at this point, but what does that mean? It means that wind field is probably a little bit more broad as well, but it's not as powerful out there. We're not seeing the same kind of wind speeds, but we're seeing some very serious wind gusts out there, stretching all the way from portions of Madison County down through Taylor County still too. So the wind field is widening a little bit. The worst part of it certainly is this section right here that's throughout portions of Madison and now Hamilton counties, about to cross over into that Lowndes County line over near Eccles, a little bit into Brooks County too. You guys are up next for some real bad wind gusts, lots of heavy downpours, and a lot of lightning out there as well. A zoomed in look shows that we do have a flash flood warning in place for portions of Madison and Taylor County. It looks like we have a new one that just popped up for portions of Lowndes and a little bit of Brooks County there, the southeasternmost portions. That means that we've been seeing a lot of rainfall in a very short period of time, and yes, we certainly have. This red area right here represents some very, very heavy downpours. We just watched them roll on through Boot Hill. I actually have a couple storm reports from Madison County that haven't gone into our system, but I went ahead and wrote them down. In Greenville, we had a 65 mile per hour wind gust. At Boot Hill, Madison County High School, 67 mile per hour wind gust. So yes, still some very dangerous stuff out there. We've got the tornado watch in place until 3 p.m. today, and the reason why is that some of these feeder bands that wrap around on that southeast side, they have the potential to be tornadic. We could see them spin up at any time. The good news is we haven't seen any of those in our area as of yet. Of course, we're going to really closely watch that. If we do see something starting to spin up or see a tornado warning pop up, then we'll immediately be here to go ahead and check that out. This shows us which direction the winds are moving in relation to the radar. So the greens mean that the winds are moving towards the radar, and the reds mean that the winds are moving away from the radar. And you can tell that this is right because it's got that counterclockwise rotation. Hey guys, where's that camera over there? Can we pop that up? Where is that right now? That's at Madison High School right now? Yeah, let's pop that in. So remember, Madison High is seeing some of the worst winds right now. It's in that really patch of some very heavy downpours. And there we go. Barely any visibilities out there. The trees are ripping. Rain all over the camera lens. These are views that we have unfortunately been getting accustomed to throughout the past 4 or 5 hours at this point. So we're continuing to track that. Once again, you can kind of see where the worst of it is. This bright blue here, that is some very gusty winds. Still very gusty winds in Perry. Unfortunately, I don't like what I see here, because you see how we still have these winds moving into the Taylor County coastline? We've seen Steinhatchee. We've seen the amount of storm surge there. Unfortunately, we're not getting any relief from that yet. We're still seeing the winds surging into the coastline. It's the opposite on the western half of the Big Bend, where the winds are surging into the bay so that the water is actually getting sucked out. It's that reverse storm surge that we just saw there off the Wakulla County coastline. That's what I'm talking about right there. Well, that'll bring us into our storm surge graphic. And yes, it looks very likely that in Steinhatchee, this is the kind of storm surge that we saw, 12 to 16 feet. In terms of that house that I saw, the water was up to the roof. And when I saw it this morning, it was a house in the part of the telephone poles that we saw too. Just crazy scenes out there. Here's some of the winds right now across the area. These are the sustained winds, not wind gusts. So we have sustained winds of 38 miles per hour in Perry, 39 miles per hour in Valdosta, still kicking in Tallahassee, 26 right now, 32 in Moultrie. These are conditions that you simply cannot be driving in, and especially in this area with the heaviest winds, you shouldn't be outside at all. Here are some of the current wind gusts out there. These are going to be a little bit heavier. Those are these 1 to 2 second bursts of wind that normally can cause a whole lot of damage out there. 41 miles per hour right now in Tallahassee, 55 in Perry. I bet you it's a lot more in Madison County. I told you those 2 storm reports both had wind gusts in excess of 65 miles per hour. 56 miles per hour in Valdosta. Starting to pick up in Homerville, 29 right now, 41 in Moultrie, 17 there in Liberty County, 29 right now down in Franklin County, 38 in Quincy, 31 in Bainbridge. Let's track these wind gusts. It'll show you where the storm is moving. Live Oak, seeing some of the worst of it right now, and so is Hamilton County and Madison County. Soon the worst of it is going to be in South Georgia. Spots like Lowndes, Clinch, Eccles, Lanier, that's when you're going to start to see the worst of it as well. Now, once again, it seems to be taking more of that northward track instead of northeast, so we'll have to watch that. But nonetheless, we know it's going to be exiting our area by the time we get to later on this afternoon. So then by the time we get to this evening, we'll start to see those wind gusts dramatically come down. So I think by this evening, we're all going to be in the clear from this. Real quick, let's just check in on some of those rain totals one more time. Yeah, things are starting to add up. I see these reds popping up in Madison County. That means isolated spots getting up to 6 inches of rainfall so far since Idalia has came to our coast. And the rain continues to pile up. We'll check back in on that soon. We'll get another check of that radar. Rob's got you covered here coming up in just a little bit.
All right, well, thanks, Josh. Another breakdown from you.
Right.
You know, keeping track of what's happening.
Yeah, and that shot from Madison he showed earlier shows, yeah, the visibility's bad, the wind is bad. What Perry got, Madison gets, and what Madison gets, unfortunately, it seems Valdosta could get, or another county in North Florida. So a lot we're keeping on top of, and a lot we're trying to follow on our end, get some new info from our newsroom, working hard. I believe we have a live update now from Leon County.
Yeah, Madison Glaser, she's at one of the shelters in Tallahassee, which is at Lincoln High School right now. Madison, what's going on now there?
Well, hello, Lenitra and Jacob. A lot has happened since the last time that we talked to you. Power has went down here at Lincoln High School because wind has picked up, the rain obviously coming down as well. That actually, they have a generator here, that transmitter also not working. So we're here without power. So getting any kind of communication back to the station has definitely been a struggle while we've been out here, just because we have no form of trying to get emails into the station, any kind of communication back to the station. But we found a spot right here that allows us to feed any kind of signal back to the station. So what we've been seeing is a lot of like trash cans rolling through the parking lot and the yard here at Lincoln High School. I want to go ahead and direct your attention this way. We're going to take you just a little bit on a tour here. If you see right here in this corner, you can see that there's actually a tree down right here. This just happened not that long ago after this storm broke out. It didn't damage any of the school, but the tree is down. There is down trees through this area, and obviously those limbs from this tree right here are scattered along the rest of the area that is located just behind me, and you can see those raindrops on that screen. I have to apologize for that. And there's still tons of people inside here seeking that shelter. They're making their way outside because at this point it really feels cooler outside than it does stuck with all those doors shut inside the cafeteria of the high school that we've been in, that we've been talking to you about. Everyone's awake at this point. When we were talking to you throughout the night, lots of people were sleeping, trying to pass through the storm. But now that it's here, we've got little kids right here, just right in front of me. They're playing high energy and having a good time. We're trying to make the best of the situation, the little ones are, which is fantastic. And we're continuing just to try to see what kind of rain and wind and stuff comes through the area, and we're trying to filter back all those videos to you as quickly as we can. But as I just mentioned, right now what we're seeing are those trees that are downed in that corner over there. Luckily missed the school, didn't damage any of the school. We have no electricity, no word yet on when that's going to get back up, no generator back up, and that transmitter's down. They say they're working on that right now, but they don't know again when they're going to get that back up. So you've got about 50 people inside just kind of sitting there twiddling their thumbs, can't really access any kind of internet, Facebook, social media of any sort. Signaling is very, very spotty wherever we're at, whenever we're there. So again, we're doing the best we can to feed that information to you, and we'll continue to provide those updates to you as they become available while we're out here. So we're going to go ahead and send it back to you, back at the station, Lenitra, Jacob, and if we get any more updates, we're definitely going to send them to you, if we can.
Please do, Madison, and thank you for that. And yeah, it's tough to be at a shelter and then to lose power. But yeah, the kids have high spirits. Helps you kind of keep a high spirit too, right?
It's so good to hear that at least they are staying in a good mood around there, you know, because this can be a tough time. But so that's good, you know, staying in those high spirits. In Madison County, though, the sheriff's office telling us they're no longer safe for first responders to be on the roads. And of course, this is due to the fallen trees and power lines in all areas of Madison. So, you know, this is including law enforcement, fire rescue, EMS, and county road crews. They say it's not safe for them to be out there.
Yeah, and that's a live look at Madison as we share the story. Now, the sheriff's saying, like, everyone needs to continue to shelter in place. Do not attempt to get on the roadways. And Madison, I believe the sheriff's office there was the one telling us that trees had fallen onto vehicles traveling on the interstate.
Wow.
So that's the situation we're in.
That's while they were traveling.
While they were traveling, when some of the high winds were crossing I-10. So that, of course, a scary situation. Still, just stay at home if you can.
Yeah, stay at home if you can. And we're going to go ahead and check in on those power outage numbers. The latest that we have right now in Leon County, 11,732. So we know the power outage, well, as we just saw, we spoke to Madison, and she's at the shelter at Lincoln High School in Tallahassee, and even there, the lights are out. So Wakulla County, 9,281. Swanee, 15,700. So all these different areas.
Yeah, Taylor County seeing about 4,300, and then I also received word the Tallahassee city proper is 38,000, more than 38,000 outages in the city of Tallahassee. So that's a significant number, and that's in addition to the Leon County numbers that we are probably getting from Talquin. So a lot of folks waking up in the dark, and hopefully we'll find creative ways to stay cool. It helps that you do have that rain to cool off the temperatures, at least once the storm goes through. But yeah, we'll keep a close eye on those numbers. We'll keep a close eye on the different weather stim cameras that we can check on. They really give us a good insight into where the worst weather is going on.
Yeah, indeed. And I actually got a text message from a commissioner, county commissioner in Gaston County with a little information here. And he was saying that they have 62 shelters in West Gaston, a shelter, Gaston County High, special needs, and that also allows pets. So I know that's a big one. A lot of people want to know, where they can take their pets when it comes to these shelters. Even though it may not be good, if you haven't found a good place to shelter.
Yeah, right now that you should be where you are.
Right.
But it was good to know that yesterday all the different counties were establishing shelters or not, depending on how close they were to the center of the storm. So.
Yeah, he did mention there are 2 trees down so far, 1 car accident, and 1,400 power outages reported by Talco. And again, that is Gaston County.
Yeah, so that's all good information. And let's show you. Oh, this is the moment when the Lincoln lost power. So yeah, that was. This is some view of the limbs that fell that Madison was talking about a few moments ago. So yeah, that was the experience for some refugees taking in the Idalia at a shelter.
Yeah, there's that trash can she mentioned there rolling in the rain. And, and Madison, she apologized for having raindrops on her camera lens, but no apology needed.
Right.
Because, of course, we see what the conditions are. And thankfully, she said she was able to move in a spot where she felt safe and where they were able to get a signal. But wow, look at that. That is something else, those folks in the shelter at Lincoln High School in Tallahassee.
Yeah. And frankly, all of that damage is pretty minimal in the grand scheme of things, thankfully. But we've seen live video from Taylor County and in Madison County that hints at the idea that the damage could be more severe wind damage in those communities, not to mention the storm surge damage we've seen along the coast this morning.
Yeah, Rob and Josh have been talking about the flooding that we could also see that we still have to worry about. So with all of the rain that's still expected and the wind, there are some spots that could see some flooding. So remember, if you see a road that is flooded, do not drive on it. You shouldn't be out at all if you can help it. But if you see water on a road and and it's obvious that is some water there, turn around, don't drown. That's the saying they say, and it's important because sometimes you never know how deep the water is, and a lot of people get stuck and get into some serious trouble there.
Absolutely, good words of wisdom indeed. All right, we're approaching the 10 o'clock hour, and Rob, as we reach this point, what's kind of the most important headline for our viewers right now? Do you think?
Well, right now it's about the wind and the rain falling closest to where that core is, and hopefully some areas that will finally start to see some of those rains taper off to just showers and then eventually taper off to more nothing. But we're still waiting on some new information that'll be coming in around 10 o'clock. The 9 o'clock numbers, still 110 mile per hour sustained winds, and then pressure at 957 millibars as the storm moves to the northeast at like 18 miles per hour. Now we know it's weaker than that after an hour over land. How much weaker? That's what we're going to find out in the next 10 minutes or so. That expected path still takes it up through eastern Georgia into the South Carolina area, and we'll watch it from there. This is what it looks like on the radar, and you can definitely see that circulation around that center. And maybe towards the end here, I've been watching for the past hour or so now, it does look like maybe it's bobbling a little bit more back towards the north and less to the northeast. And that may mean a little bit more of whatever's left of that core finding its way towards Valdosta. And that's just been the way this system has gone. It doesn't look like it wants to stay on any particular path for too long without a bobble or a wobble in some other direction. Now, you can see that back edge of the rain as you work your way into parts of Alabama and over towards more of the Apalachicola River. So things do look drier out west. And to the east, that's where we're going to have those steady bands scooping around the system, and that is going to be where the more significant rains end up. But for right now, from near Cherry Lake and now north of Madison to just south of Valdosta on I-75, that's going to be the area that we're seeing the most significant rain. There's quite a bit of heavier rains along Highway 84 from Valdosta through Quitman back over towards Thomasville, maybe not quite as far back as Thomasville, maybe stopping near Boston. And then I see, as you head a little bit further to the north, we've got a little better chance to see some more of those showers be a little bit more significant there as the storm itself or that core is lifting a little bit more to the north. Here's a little different view with the rainfall accumulation of just the past 12 hours. And we're seeing more of those deeper purples, maybe a little bit of red kind of mixing in there in some of those spots around Madison. So now we're talking 4, 5, 6 inches worth of rain. I think in the bigger swath is where those blue colors are, and that's the 2 to 3 to 4 inch range. So plenty of rain over just the past 12 hours, and we are not done yet. There's likely going to be another couple of hours of the rain, probably into the early afternoon before all is said and done, depending on how far south and west you are or how far north and east you are. It's going to take longer to get the rain out of our northern and eastern areas. Now, as far as the winds go, we've been watching these all morning, and so far, most of the sustained winds have stayed less than 40 miles per hour. I see in Perry 38 mile per hour sustained winds. I see 35 mile per hour sustained winds in Valdosta. In Moultrie, 32. Now that's scary and dangerous enough, and that can cause power outages, that can cause tree limbs to break, that can cause damage to structures. Most of the area in that like 15 to 30 mile per hour range, and that is also something that we'd go from breezy to windy out there for sure. I've seen some of those gusts in a couple of spots, like especially around Perry, gusts that got up over 85 miles per hour, maybe once or twice, maybe not as gusty now in Valdosta, some of those gusts to 56 miles per hour. So that's where whatever's left of that core is headed. That's where the strongest winds are, and that's where they're going to be. Look at that in Valdosta, a 67 mile per hour wind gust. So that's like that 2 or 3 second burst. And just recently, as we're getting close to 10 o'clock, seeing some of those stronger and more dangerous wind gusts. And those are going to continue for a while longer until the core itself lifts out of the area and continues to weaken. Here's the bigger picture, kind of the overview of the whole system. And when you get north and west of Bainbridge, and when you get west of Crawfordville, that's sort of the back edge to where these showers are spiraling around, and that's much lighter activity coming through parts of Thomas and Grady County into northern Leon County, especially north of I-10. That's where we have some of those moderate to heavy rains, and there's more of that as you get closer on that sort of line from areas in Grady and Thomas County back into parts of Brooks and Lowndes, and in northern areas of Madison, Jefferson, and Leon, north of I-10. That's where the more significant rains are currently. They're lifting to the north. Another hour from now, they'll lift even farther to the north, and the sooner that happens, the better for lots of our areas. Now, that extreme wind warning is set to go until 11:15, and that includes Taylor and Dixie County. It also includes Lafayette and Suwannee and Madison County. Hopefully we can start to wind that down a little bit too as the whatever's left of the core weakens and moves more to the north. Flash flood concerns for parts of Wakulla County and southern Leon County, for parts of Taylor and Madison, and now is included in that parts of Lowndes, and it looks like parts of Hamilton too. So some of those flood concerns because of all the rains that we've been seeing and all the rains that we're continuing to see, and I do expect that to continue to be an issue for us for another couple of hours. I see some breaks and gaps from areas like Live Oak to Mayo. A nice little break would do wonders to allow some of that water to run off in some spots. But just because you get a break where you are doesn't mean it's okay to go outside and start surveying. Let it all pass. Give it another couple of hours. Wait till after lunchtime, and hopefully things will start to wind down in more areas and things will stay quieter. But the longer you can stay off the roads and let those emergency crews do what they have to do, that is a much better idea than trying to be out there and trying to drive around right now. Here's our radar picture. We zoom in, and I see, especially from near Valdosta, where those rains are starting to get a little bit more intense, to over towards Statenville, where those rains are starting to get a little bit more intense, north of Madison. Maybe things are starting to quiet down around the city of Madison finally after a very busy hour. And a little bit back towards the west, over towards Asheville and up towards Quitman, we've got some significant rains here. So we widen out that view a little bit more. We definitely have that moderate rain on Highway 319 from Moultrie down to Thomasville, down through Tallahassee, and even still down towards Woodville into northern parts of Wakulla County. I see a few more significant bands of rain from Camilla to Cairo and into western parts of northern Leon County. If we take a look a little further out to the west, go over towards Bainbridge, go up towards Colquitt Highway 27, maybe not as busy as other areas, but still a couple of decent stripes. And as these continue to circulate around what's left of that core, then yeah, we're going to continue to see more areas that get in some more of that rain. And even down towards the coast, we're continuing to see that. With those winds that are still mostly out of the north in our western areas, That is still going to help to keep that surge down near the Franklin and Wakulla County coasts, but it's going to be areas up against the Taylor and Dixie County coasts where we're going to have the most water piling up and the bigger chances for some of those really dangerous storm surge areas. So there's a lot of that we've got to keep our eyes on as we work our way through the remainder of the day. That doesn't just go away, and we're going to see high tides, by the way, happen later on this afternoon, so that water will still continue to pile up in those coastal sections. Now, a little wider view is still going to show more of the same thing for us. The storm itself lifting to the north and getting weaker. As we get closer and closer to 10 o'clock, we'll see that 10 o'clock advisory pop in, and hopefully it'll show us another downgrade and show us some more weaker winds. But right now, it's that area north of Madison, south of Valdosta, over towards Quitman. That's where what's left of that core is, and that's where the strongest winds are going to be. That's where the most significant rains are going to be. And while there is some drier air back to the west, the more I look at some of the longer range computers and some of the longer stuff to start to put together some kind of forecast heading towards the holiday weekend, I still think some showers are going to be part of our deal for another couple of days, sort of on again, off again ones. But hopefully we can start to bring in some of that drier air, and we'll fine tune that part of the forecast for you when we're done talking about what's going on with the tropics. Okay, here is the latest information. So we've got the 10 o'clock info in, 105 mile per hour sustained winds around that core. Remember, that's up off the ground. That's in that very small area. It's got a pressure up to 964 millibars, another indication of continued weakening. The motion is still to the north and northeast at 18. So everything is pretty much going the way we hope it would go. We like to see it get weaker and weaker, and hopefully it gets there soon. The current coordinates will put it about 5 miles east-northeast of Madison. So yeah, that whatever's left of that core is near Madison right now, to the north of I-10, and should continue to move that way. And as far as the indications go, I don't see really any other changes to that forecast path. This 10 o'clock advisory is another one of those more updates than advisories. At 11 o'clock, we should get a full advisory. There'll be a new discussion and a whole new works with that, so maybe that can continue to point us in the right direction of what we're looking for. But yeah, without a doubt, we still have a lot of rain coming down. A lot of it is crossing I-10 and starting to get across the state line, some more of those pockets of the more serious rain. And we're seeing quite a bit of that along Highway 84 from Lowndes County back through Brooks County and over towards Thomas. It does get weaker the further west you go. So over towards Grady and Decatur, not nearly as much rain or as much wind as we have in parts of Brooks and Lowndes, and that should be something that continues. Farther to the north, farther to the east, that's where those most serious waves of rain and wind will be. It doesn't mean there's still not going to be waves of rain. It's all going to spiral around the system, and we're all going to continue to watch it. But it looks like as that core moves farther away and continues to weaken, the severity of the wind and the rain that we see should also continue to move away and weaken. And we'll still be watching all up and down the peninsula, as that area east of the center is the most susceptible to spin up tornadoes. Fortunately, we haven't seen any yet, but I do think that watch is going to continue into the afternoon, and the potential for some dangerous spin-up tornadoes is going to be there. I think the threat's going to get a little higher when you get up towards maybe coastal parts of Georgia and South Carolina, based on the physics and the structure of the land, but we'll certainly be watching out for any kind of activity like that in our area as we go into the afternoon today. One more look at that radar picture, and you can see from Cherry Lake north of Madison now, that's where whatever's left of the core, and there's not even a lot of symmetry left to it. It's just kind of a blob of red and orange out there. But up to Valdosta, up to Highway 84, we certainly do see some of those more significant spots of rain, and I think that's going to continue lifting to the north for the next hour or two, and eventually it's going to take more and more of that out of our area, and that's when things hopefully start to quiet down for more of us. I do suspect we're still going to be in that rainfall range of a lot of areas, maybe 3 to 6 inches. The highest rainfall numbers in that 5 to 10 inch range. So those bullseyes were pretty accurate, I think, as we were looking at them yesterday. So lots of rain, still part of the deal, and still lots of wind. But at least at present, most of the winds that I'm seeing are in the range of like 15 to 30 miles per hour sustained, with a couple of spots like Perry a little bit higher, up to 37 miles per hour. And those wind gusts, those are the ones that are really going to cause the scary conditions. I did see a couple of 85s in Perry. I saw a couple of 56s or 58s in Valdosta. That is absolutely dangerous stuff. And I do think we could probably find a few more like that, especially in South Georgia, over the next couple of hours. Hopefully, those stronger wind gusts will start to calm down across more of the area as the storm itself continues to weaken and lifts more to the north. All right, that's enough out of me for a little while, guys. I'll still keep working on what's going on out there, waiting for that 11 o'clock information, but of course we got an hour to go before we get there. The story is going to be the same. Those significant rains moving north from Madison towards Valdosta, and hopefully starting to quiet down in many other areas.